This young man had found the absolute peak of martial arts. But then he realized that the span of a single human life would never be enough to surpass this truth. Fast clung to an ancient legend. That legend said that deep within a sacred holy land, protected by a divine dragon, there was a golden fruit. That fruit was believed to hold the power of immortality. Following that legend, Fast truly found the tree. On it was a single fruit, radiating a brilliant golden light. It was the fruit of immortality. To obtain the fruit of immortality, he had even defeated the divine dragon. And now, nothing could stop Fast from attaining immortality, so he could pursue the pinnacle of martial arts. Thinking that, he stood up, decisively plucked the fruit, and devoured it. He was Fast El Dragon, the man known as the strongest in the world. Several decades later, the El Dragon clan had become immensely wealthy. But at this moment, Fast lay in bed with a haggard, aged face. The family's private physician had said that he had very little time left, and the clan's eldest son, Julian, was standing by the bed with an extremely sorrowful expression. "Do not put on such a pathetic face. My time has simply run out, that is all." Fast tightly held his son's hand, yet the words from his mouth were incredibly stern. As could be seen, in the end, Fast still could not reach immortality. In the end, those legends still could not be trusted. He still grew old and was about to reach the end of his life. But Fast still felt fortunate because he had had a good wife and obedient children. "My beloved children, Fast, have lived long enough." Fast spoke in a very light tone. Looking at him like this, it seemed as if he had no regrets left in life. But that was only the lie of a man about to depart from this world. In truth, of course, Fast still had something he longed for. At the final moment of his life, he suddenly let go of his eldest son's hand and reached desperately toward empty space. Fast thought to himself, if only I had more time, because he still had not managed to reach the absolute pinnacle of martial arts. Seeing this, Julian could not hold back his tears. But nothing changed. Fast time had run out, and his life had ended. However, life always contains surprises that no one can foresee. Because after closing his eyes and passing away, Fast once again saw light. The first thing that entered his sight was the pattern on the wallpaper, and thanks to that, Fast realized he was in the annex of the mansion. What was worth mentioning was that his body suddenly felt strangely light, and when he turned his head to the right, Fast saw a pair of tiny hands. To be exact, they were the hands of a newborn baby. It was unbelievable. The strongest man in the world, Fast, El Dragon, had now become a newborn baby. This was enough to make even someone like him, who had experienced countless calamities and battles in life, panic. Fast reassured himself, calm down first. To drag someone who had reached the 10-star rank like me into such a bizarre situation without being noticed is almost impossible. Clearly, this was truly abnormal. But Fast could not think of who would be capable of doing such a thing or how. Then a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He thought of the fruit of immortality he had eaten when he was young. So its true effect was not eternal life within a single lifetime, but reincarnation. This perfectly explained why Fast had just died and then awakened in the form of a newborn baby. He had never expected this at all, but it truly was fortunate. In this new life, with his memories intact, Fast still had plenty of time to reach the absolute pinnacle of martial arts. After accepting this reality, Fast finally began carefully observing his surroundings and discovered that there were quite a few other newborn babies sleeping here. He was certain the place where he lay was the mansion's annex, meaning that he had once again reincarnated into the El Dragon clan. But why were so many newborn babies gathered here? Just as this question appeared, the room's door opened. Several maids walked in carrying feeding bottles. Fast watched them closely. But the first thing they did was prop up a goblin and shove some strange red liquid into its mouth. This left Fast utterly shocked. Why was there a goblin here? And what exactly were those people planning to do? Wait, only after the goblin had drunk nearly all of that red liquid did the maids release it. The goblin let out a furious roar, and then blood suddenly sprayed from its body, splattering even onto the bedware. Fast was lying. What has happened? His eyes widened as he thought to himself. Fast truly could not make sense of the situation that had just occurred. All he knew was that afterward, the maids quietly said to each other, "If we dilute it this much, it should be safe. Feed it to them." As soon as those words fell, the maids began picking up the newborn babies. Naturally, Fast was among them. Although he did not know exactly what that liquid was, he felt that it contained an immense source of power. Feeding it to newborn babies was clearly far too dangerous. And yet, Fast still opened his mouth and instinctively gulped down that liquid, even though his mind resisted with all its might. Fast had completely forgotten that right now, he was still only a newborn baby. It was very difficult to resist the instincts of this age. From the very first mouthful, Fast realized that this was ancient dragon blood. He thought to himself, "Were these fools thinking, forcing us to drink this?" So the dilution they mentioned was referring to this. At this moment, a few babies had finished feeding and were placed back into their cradles. Fast was still being forced to drink from the bottle. He felt that the situation was terrible and believed he had to stop it immediately. Although he had already swallowed a little dragon blood, such a small amount probably was not life-threatening. It was just that if he kept drinking, Fast's body might also explode like that goblin's. But just as he was about to spit out the dragon blood, another thought appeared in his mind. A baby drinking diluted ancient dragon blood might be an extremely dangerous thing, but at the same time, it was also a once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity. If he could absorb all of this enormous energy, Fast might even surpass his previous life and reach the absolute pinnacle of martial arts. Fast made his decision very quickly. Although he did not know the reason for this, he would seize this opportunity. The dragon blood carried a current of immense power, and it quickly invaded Fast's blood vessels. He felt that this tiny body, which he had not yet even had time to get used to, was about to explode. However, Fast would absolutely not allow that to happen. Seeing that the bottle was still not empty, Fast even took the initiative to grab it tightly and gulp it down. As he drank, he thought to himself that he would absorb all the power of the ancient dragon. After that, he would be able to reach the absolute pinnacle of martial arts that he had failed to attain in his previous life. The more Fast thought about it, the more fired up he became. But what he had never expected was that the unpleasant feeling of nearly exploding passed very quickly. After that, the power of the ancient dragon was absorbed by Fast's body with ease. Just like that, after he finished the bottle, Fast was placed back into the cradle. The other babies all seemed to have survived as well, and none of them exploded like the goblin. It truly seemed one should not underestimate a baby's survival instincts. Because he was in a child's body, after eating his fill, Fast began to feel sleepy again. And just like that, a new life officially began. 7 years later, Fast had clearly grown up. The former clan head of the L-Dragon clan now had a new identity, Jack L-Dragon. From now on, it would be more appropriate to call him Young Master Jack. Although he had reincarnated, Jack's physical strength was still outstanding. Part of that was because in his previous life, he had once been the strongest man in the world, and part of it was thanks to the ancient dragon blood. All living creatures possess a source of power, and the ancient dragon blood that Jack and the other children were forced to drink when they were small contained an endless source of power. The children who absorbed it more or less gained physiques far beyond ordinary people. Combined with the power of the divine dragon that Jack had defeated in his previous life, which had always resided within his body, he became the only child who could completely absorb the entire power source of the ancient dragon. And he underwent changes that even shocked himself. However, after 7 years of reincarnation, Jack had only reached the 1-star rank. This left Jack extremely disappointed. He felt that by now, he should have reached at least the 4-star rank. Stars were the source of power a person gained when pushed to a certain limit. The body was regarded as a universe, with stars floating inside it. The greater the number of stars, the greater the power obtained. But whenever the number of stars increased, creating new stars became even more difficult. In his previous life, Jack, or rather Fast, had reached the 10-star rank, an unprecedented achievement. He was famous as the only person in the world to reach that level of power. The more Jack thought about it, the more depressed he became. His current identity was the illegitimate child of the present head of the L-Dragon clan. His mother had already passed away, and his father had never once appeared. Jack was extremely doubtful about that man's qualities as a father. But more than that, when he first learned the timeline, he had been utterly shocked because he discovered that he had been reborn 1,000 years later. The fact that he had reincarnated was already astonishing enough, but being reborn 1,000 years later was even more unexpected. Before Jack could even properly comprehend the time period in which he had come back to life, this world had already become a place where the survival of the strong was tested to the extreme. A typical example was the situation he had experienced after reviving. newborn babies being made to drink diluted ancient dragon blood. Only much later did Jack learn that this was a ritual called the Trial of the Dragon, and only children who survived this trial could receive an education as Dragon warriors. In theory, that was how it worked. But for Jack, even though he had survived the Trial of the Dragon, not a single person had come to teach him how to become a warrior over the past 7 years. This was not the first time Jack had wondered about it, because around him there were only maids and not a single teacher. And every time he asked, the nearby maid would simply reply with an emotionless expression, "I am afraid I cannot answer that question." "Is there a problem, young master?" "No, there is no problem. In any case, physical training is more important to me right now than learning how to fight. I can do that much on my own anyway. But at the very least, I would like to know a little information about the other children or about the main clan. Do you not think so?" "I am afraid I cannot answer that question." The maid still replied with mechanical phrasing. Jack was truly annoyed. He merely wanted to know information about the family. What about that was worth hiding? Jack had even tried everything, from sweet flattery to turning stern and cold, but the maid's answer did not change in the slightest. He felt that this treatment from the servants was truly far too harsh. But that maid said that she had only received orders to take care of Jack's daily needs and absolutely must not overstep her duties. So even if he tried to pry her mouth open, she would not say anything more. That maid had reached the 3-star rank. For basic combat, a servant at that level was already sufficient. And perhaps that was also the reason she felt no fear at all toward Jack, who had only reached the 1-star rank. "Fine, I will go into the forest," he said wearily. Living together for 7 years with only this bare minimum of interaction was truly too abnormal. And so Jack changed his clothes and went into the forest. Here, he could find a few medicinal herbs he was familiar with. He picked them and put them in his mouth. Their taste was still just as horrible as in his previous life, but this could also be considered a method of training. Jack forced himself to be patient. However, he kept sensing a gaze constantly watching him. Recently, this unpleasant feeling made Jack feel that he really could do something. Suddenly, he heard a rustling sound not far from him. "Well, I did not expect you to reveal yourselves over such a trivial matter. If you have something to say, then come out and say it directly." Jack suddenly spoke. Then he pushed aside the dense bushes in front of him and advanced deeper into the forest. Jack had thought he was being followed by a maid, but it turned out to be a wild boar. Around its body was a black aura, something that had not existed 1,000 years ago. This made Jack wonder what exactly it was. He had originally planned to quietly observe that wild boar, but unexpectedly, it discovered him and went berserk, charging in to attack him first. If that was how it was, then Jack was not afraid. He wanted to use it to test his current strength. When the wild boar rushed at him, he gracefully shifted to the side to avoid being struck by its charge. After that, Jack clenched his hand into a fist and gave his opponent a heaven-shaking punch. The wild boar was taken down after this single move. Jack seemed extremely satisfied to see that merely touching a creature of the same 1-star rank could produce this much power. He carried the boar like a trophy and intended to continue exploring deeper into the forest. After all, the maids always left him alone. However, Jack's feeling of being watched earlier had been completely accurate, because behind him, a man had been carefully watching Jack's every move the entire time. After witnessing him defeat the wild boar, the man thought, "What the hell is going on here?" Even without proper training, he can use the power of 1-star rank and defeat that frenzied wild boar with a single blow. More importantly, he even noticed my concealed presence. A series of thoughts appeared in this mysterious man's mind, and then he concluded that Jack was no ordinary child. His mother had died early, and his father did not bother to care about him. A child like Jack definitely had not received the family's spiritual instruction. However, because the clan's blood flowed through his veins, he was not permitted to leave the clan, so he had always been closely monitored by servants. Well, even if he is an illegitimate child, he still carries the blood of the Dragon clan. Is that why he has such power? This will become quite interesting later. The man muttered, then disappeared into the forest. When Jack returned, he sensed the presence of several strangers. Specifically, there were 3 people with 4-star power and 1 person with 5-star power. All of them were skilled warriors. But what did they want here? Out of curiosity, Jack pressed his ear against the door and eavesdropped on the people inside. "The air is really fresh out here in the countryside, Captain." "It is not that. There are no rifts nearby, so there is probably less chaos." After listening for a while, Jack felt that these people did not seem to have any malicious intent. At the very least, they did not look like they had come to carry out an assassination. Besides, if they wanted to assassinate him, there probably would be no need to send 3 4-star warriors and 1 5-star warrior like this. And so Jack pushed the door open, stepped inside, and confidently asked, "Who are you, and what business do you have in a place like this?" When their eyes met, Jack discovered that they were wearing uniforms with the El Dragon clan crest attached to their chests. So they were clan warriors. As soon as they saw him, the 4 of them carefully saluted. Then the oldest among them spoke. "This must be the first time we have met. We have come to escort you, young Master Jack, back to take part in a test." This time, it was Jack's turn to be shocked. A test? What? He had not even been properly taught for a single day. And yet, just like that, Jack was dragged back to the clan's main estate by the envoys who had been sent in a manner he did not particularly want. And of course, they had not called him back to live in a main house. As stated, it was for a test. It seemed that over the past 1,000 years, the El Dragon clan had established a specialized educational academy called Dragon's Lair. And all children born into this clan had the goal of entering Dragon's Lair. Before that, they would be educated at home until the age of 7. Only Jack was the exception. Today was the annual Dragon's Lair entrance examination, even though Jack had never received a single proper lesson. Even so, participating in the examination was mandatory because he still bore the El Dragon name. And so they forcibly brought him here from the remote border region. Jack was utterly despairing. Why did this have to happen right when he was planning to run away from home? He had even carefully prepared his luggage. Overcome with sadness, Jack actually slumped down onto the ground. And this drew the attention of a boy named Rengiz from Argo Village. Rengiz had hair and eyes as blue as the ocean, gentle facial features, and seemed to have a fairly mild personality as well. The proof was that while the other children merely walked past Jack, he stopped and reached out his hand. "Are you all right? Did something happen? Who are you?" Jack replied in a rather unenthusiastic tone. Rengiz seemed embarrassed. He withdrew his hand, introduced himself, then said that he had only wanted to help because Jack looked unwell. Jack immediately looked him up and down, then concluded that this boy looked timid, but was actually quite perceptive. A while later, Jack finally pulled himself together. After standing up, he tried to put on the most ingratiating expression he could and replied, "You're Rengiz, right? My name is Jack. I have no idea what they're planning to make us do." "Well, the content of the exam hasn't changed at all over the past few years," Rengiz replied. "Oh no, I don't even know what the exam consists of," Jack answered calmly. His attitude and his answer immediately sent Rengiz into a panic. It seemed this was the first time Rengiz had ever met someone with absolutely no foundation. And of course, Rengiz knew nothing about Jack's circumstances. He only felt that Jack was being far too reckless by not researching even a little about the structure of the exam. Still, out of kindness, Rengiz was about to give Jack a little basic knowledge about today's exam. But before he could say much, someone suddenly shouted from somewhere, "Hey, that weakling Rengiz over there." Both he and Jack turned their heads at the same time. The owner of that rude voice was Reynold from Oskel Village. The moment Jack saw this brat's face, he knew right away that he was the type of villain who liked bullying others. "Sure enough," Reynold then said, "a weakling like you actually showed up here? Did you get lost? Get back home before you get hurt." "I came to take the Dragon's Lair entrance exam," Rengiz muttered in reply. In the end, Reynold hurled a barrage of insults right into his face. "No way. There's no way you'll ever get into Dragon's Lair. Your father is a false dragon, isn't he? What can the son of a false dragon possibly accomplish?" It seemed this bullying had not happened for the first time, and judging from the way Rengiz clenched his trembling fists, it also seemed he had never once dared to stand up and resist. After thousands of years, the El Dragon clan had split into many smaller branches, but it had always maintained a clear hierarchy controlled by an absolute ruler. Beneath this ruler were ranks such as Initiate Dragon, Regular Soldier, Young Dragon, Mature Dragon, Captain, and High Dragon Commander. As for the concept of false dragon that Reynold had just mentioned, it could be considered the bottom tier of the clan. They could not enter Dragon's lair, or they could not graduate from it. False dragons were so called in the sense of immature, unworthy ones. But although Rengiz was very timid, he desperately wanted to prove that he could do things other false dragons had never been able to do. It was just that at the moment, he still did not dare confront bullies like that brat. How can you be so sure when he hasn't even tried? And then, all of a sudden, Jack could not resist speaking up. Seeing a completely unfamiliar brat suddenly step out to speak up for Rengiz, Reynolds was clearly displeased. He raised his chin and asked, "Huh? Who the hell are you? Got a problem?" "No, I'm just asking a simple question," Jack replied with a shrug. "Why can't Rengiz do it?" "Of course it's because he's weak." "Weak?" Jack replied mockingly. "From what I can see, he's much stronger than you people." This statement had two effects. First, it gave Rengiz the kind of motivation he had never received before. Second, it provoked Reynolds, who had always looked down on others. How could that brat accept being told that he was weaker than a failure like Rengiz? Because of that, he wanted to beat Jack to a pulp. But just then, the Dragon Examiner appeared. "Attention," he loudly announced. "The Dragon's Lair entrance examination will begin now. Candidates must register in order, then quickly move with their number cards." Reynolds walked away resentfully, but before leaving, he did not forget to threaten Jack. "I'll remember your face, bastard." Looking at his retreating back, Jack could not help sighing and muttering like a little old man. What's there for him to get so angry about? Young people these days really do lose their tempers easily. We're the same age, aren't we? Rengiz even had to ask again to make sure when he heard Jack call Reynolds one of the young people these days. Besides, who wouldn't get angry after hearing someone say they're weaker than me? As Rengiz said this, he looked extremely listless and despairing. It seemed even Rengiz himself felt that he was weak and useless. Jack, however, was not the type who was good at comforting others. He merely asked in return, "But this entrance exam is mandatory, isn't it? So how can you say things like there's no chance or anything like that when you haven't even tried yet?" The more Jack spoke, the more forced Rengiz's smile became. "You really don't know anything about this exam, do you? You can actually withdraw before it begins." Rengiz even advised Jack to withdraw on his own, because at least that way he would not be injured. Of course, it was not because Rengiz looked down on Jack, but because Jack knew absolutely nothing about the exam, so taking part was simply too risky. "Someone on my level can't withdraw even if I try," Jack replied in a self-satisfied tone, leaving Rengiz even more speechless. "You really are confident, even though you don't even know what the test is like. Anyway, whatever. Hurry up. We need to be quick, or the test will start without us." Seeing Jack so confident, Rengiz seemed to gain a little motivation as well. After that, the Dragon Examiner explained the contents of the test. In front of the children of the El Dragon clan were several large stones, and their task was to scratch these stones without using any weapons other than those prepared by the organizers. Of course, using bare hand was also allowed. As long as they made a scratch appear on the stone, it counted. They had 3 attempts. If they succeeded within those 3 attempts, they passed. After hearing this, Jack muttered, "That's simple. All I have to do is scratch that stone, right?" "What?" Rengiz thought he had heard wrong. However, Jack was a child who had gone through an insane ritual like the Trial of the Dragon, and furthermore, he had completely absorbed the power of the ancient dragon. So how could such a tiny test possibly be difficult for him? In fact, after hearing the explanation, he even felt a little disappointed. The first child to begin his test was a freckle-faced boy. The boy chose a sword as his weapon, but even though he swung it with all his might, not a single crack appeared on the stone. The sword even shattered, and the boy himself was badly injured by the fragments of the broken blade. Seeing the child collapse on the ground, covered in blood, the person in charge showed not the slightest sympathy and merely asked coldly, "First attempt failed. 2 attempts remaining. Do you wish to try again?" There was no response, which counted as giving up. A younger man then stepped forward and dragged the child away. Rengiz seemed to have been frightened by this scene. As for Jack, he finally understood why this was considered test. He simply did not know what that stone actually was to be so troublesome. It's called a regeneration stone. It instantly regenerates even the tiniest scratches. Moreover, when attacked with pure brute strength like that, it reflects the attack with a force 100 times stronger, Rengiz explained. After hearing this, Jack felt even more that this was truly an absurd material. From Rengiz, he also learned that the only way to scratch it was to circulate the source of power throughout one's body correctly before attacking. Oh, I understand. It seems the things I've heard and the martial skills I've learned are less important than learning how to control the source of power. Right. Jack nodded, then continued observing. After a while, he had to admit that very few people could pass this test, even among the ones from that morning. By this point, 51 children had already taken the test. Then it passed 200 people, 300 people, and finally it was number 315's turn, Jack's turn. Before he stood up, Rengiz even tried to persuade him to give up one more time. Though they had only just met, Rengiz still did not want to see Jack get injured. Don't worry, Jack replied briefly, then walked down from the stands. The moment the dragon examiner saw him, his eyes immediately widened. That was because Jack did not choose any weapon, and from him, the examiner could sense a terrifying bearing, one that even surpassed the previous clan heads. No weapon? The dragon examiner asked carefully. Jack confidently replied, yes. There's no need. This fist is enough. His action was judged by the children sitting in the stands as arrogant and overestimating himself. After all, even if he was good at controlling his source of power, scratching that regeneration stone barehanded was still impossible for a 7-year-old child. His fist is going to be smashed to pieces. Forget his fist, maybe his whole arm will fly off. They discussed it in gleeful tones, while Rengiz could only listen in silence, then tremble violently in fear. At this moment, he was extremely regretful, feeling that if he had stopped Jack more firmly earlier, Jack would not have fallen into this dangerous situation. At the examiner's signal, Jack's test officially began. He walked closer to the stone and observed it very carefully. To be honest, this was the first time Jack had seen a mineral like this. It must have been a product formed over the 1,000 years after his previous era. There were still far too many things in this age that Jack did not understand. Even so, for now, he should focus on passing the test in front of him. Seeing Jack clench his hand into a fist, Rengiz felt he could no longer sit still. Despite his timid nature, he suddenly sprang to his feet, then called Jack's name loudly, wanting to stop him. Rengiz probably never dreamed that Jack's soul actually belonged to the former clan head Fast. And at this moment, contrary to Rengiz's worries, Jack was extremely excited, wanted to unleash all of his power right now. The move he used was Dragon Devastation, first form. Power could be seen surrounding Jack like a halo that would never fade, and his fist truly created an enormous shockwave. Thick dust and smoke enveloped the entire arena. Aside from the dragon examiner, who still stood calmly and firmly, the children in the stands were all severely affected. Some could not even open their eyes. When the dust and smoke dispersed, the first thing people saw was Jack's smug smile. Even more dazzling than that was the stone, which he had punched into shattered fragments. Truthfully speaking, this technique was still a bit too much for Jack's current body and could not compare to his previous life, but its effect was still not bad. The crowd was truly stunned by this not bad effect of his. Each child in the clan had a different reaction. Reynold, for example, was extremely resentful. Some others felt excited, while Rengiz was so frightened his face turned pale. Although the dragon examiner did not show any especially unusual expression, in truth, he was also secretly sizing Jack up from head to toe in surprise. A 7-year-old child punching away half a regeneration stone was an unprecedented event that had never happened before. This should only have been possible for someone at 4-star rank or higher. Although he is an illegitimate child, does he truly carry the bloodline of the main clan? Also, I feel as though I've seen that technique somewhere before. He kept thinking about it until Jack spoke up to remind him, Examiner, may I ask what my result is? Naturally, there was no way Jack could fail. After the dragon examiner sonorously announced that he had passed the test, the younger soldier beside him immediately shoved a bottle of green liquid into Jack's hand. It seemed to be a healing medicine. Then he urged Jack to hurry up and leave, because he still had to clean up the scene. Jack could not help pouting as he wondered whether everyone in this era was always in such a hurry. Holding that bottle of liquid, he returned to his seat in the stands. Needless to say, Rengiz was incredibly excited. He gripped Jack's hand tightly, his eyes shining brightly, looking as though he was about to start worshiping Jack like a god. Jack, you really smashed it. That was amazing. Well, it was easy, Jack replied smugly. Then, while he was at it, he asked Rengiz if he knew what that liquid was. As expected, Rengiz answered that it was a bottle of standard recovery potion. Jack carefully observed the green liquid for a long time. It truly did not look much like poison. In reality, this recovery potion was made from extremely precious ingredients. Its components were herbs that only grew in secret realms, as well as cores filled with highly pure source power from divine beasts and phantom beasts, creatures that were already extremely difficult just to defeat. When used, it not only healed wounds, but even old scars were instantly cured. The medicine also showed great effectiveness in strengthening one source of power. However, because gathering the ingredients was extremely difficult and refining it was extraordinarily challenging, it rarely appeared. After listening to Rengiz explain this miraculous liquid, Jack drank it all without hesitation. Very quickly, he personally verified its healing ability and could not help exclaiming, "Wow, is this really a spiritual medicine?" I don't know much about spiritual medicines among recovered drugs, but if it was prepared by the El Dragon clan, then it's definitely better than the kind sold normally. Are you that surprised? Rengiz asked again. Of course Jack was surprised. It seemed that after 1,000 years, the art of medicine refinement had developed more and more. The proof was that even the serious wounds on his body were healed immediately. It just seemed that it did not have as powerful an effect in increasing source power as a true spiritual medicine. This was truly the wisdom of humanity accumulated over 1,000 years. Speaking of which, compared to Jack's surprise at that bottle of medicine, it was not even half of Rengiz's surprise toward him. After the two sat down, Rengiz kept praising Jack's performance just now, saying it was wonderful, that he was extremely strong, and that he had great style. This made Reynold even more uncomfortable. After Jack, it was also their turn. Contrary to Jack's expectations, that unpleasant Reynold still barely passed. When the Dragon Examiner called candidate number 414, Rengiz beside Jack suddenly jumped in fright because it was his turn. Seeing Rengiz even walking unsteadily, Jack loudly encouraged him. "It's fine. Just stay calm." "All right, but don't expect too much from me," Rengiz replied in a voice that sounded as though he was about to cry. He walked down into the arena and chose a sword as his weapon. Instead of beginning immediately, Rengiz stood still for a long time, gripping the sword tightly in his hand and muttering something as though reciting an incantation. After the signal to begin rang out, he resolutely slashed hard at the stone, but he was sent rebounding backward. Rengiz had failed his first attempt, and he still had two more. He reassured himself that this time he would definitely succeed. Even so, the result was not any better. Rengiz was still knocked down in a miserable, disheveled state, and he became a laughingstock for the malicious children of his own clan. As expected, the child of a false dragon will always be nothing but a false dragon. They burst into laughter, then advised him to give up early. Reynold was probably the most delighted of all. He leaned forward, trying to speak as loudly as possible so Jack could hear his voice. "Huh, what did you say earlier? Didn't you say that Rengiz, who's lying there on the ground, was stronger than us?" Jack did not answer, but the giggling laughter of those brats kept striking his ears, making him extremely irritated. Down in the arena, Rengiz still had one attempt left, but after two failures, it seemed that the last bit of his confidence had been completely shattered. Rengiz kept stammering, unable to form a sentence. Then suddenly, Jack left his seat and walked down into the arena, standing behind Rengiz. He abruptly spoke up. "What are you doing? Why did you choose a sword instead of spear?" "Did you say a spear?" Rengiz froze. "I already said it. Why use a weapon that doesn't suit you when you don't have any plan at all? In your current state, no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to make a scratch on that stone with a sword." Even though Jack gave him that suggestion, the panic in Rengiz's heart did not lessen at all. In fact, he was turned into an even more ridiculous source of amusement by Reynolds' group. "What the hell are you talking about? His father doesn't use a spear. That false dragon only taught him swordsmanship." Reynold mocked him contemptuously, and then the whole group burst into laughter again. They all agreed that Rengiz was just the useless son of a false dragon, and that even if he changed weapons now, it would be of no use. They wanted to see him struggle, only to fail in humiliation in the end. Only Jack persisted in wanting to help Rengiz change his fate in this final attempt. "Examiner, is changing weapons during the test against the rules?" He turned and asked the Dragon Examiner, and received the answer that it was not a problem. Seeing that, Jack immediately changed to a bright, calm expression and continued speaking to Rengiz. "Did you hear what he said, Rengiz? You're lucky. Then try again. Don't tell me you're planning to just let them do as they please." As Jack spoke, he pointed toward the stands. By them, he was clearly referring to the children who had always bullied Rengiz. Memories from his childhood until now appeared clearly in his mind, and for most of the time since he had become aware of the world, Rengiz had always been bullied by those spiteful kids like this. That alone pushed him to stand up and refuse to give up. Rengiz decided to listen to Jack and try using the spear for this final attempt. Because Rengis's father was a false dragon, he had never been able to enter Dragon's Lair. He had been mocked his entire life, but even so, he never paid much attention to it. Instead, he focused only on raising Rengiz into the person he was today. Here and now, Rengiz wanted to bring honor to his father by proving that he was fully qualified to join Dragon's Lair. Even with that determination, the child could not avoid feeling nervous as he held the long spear in his hands. He could barely even breathe. But Rengiz himself also knew that if he tried again with a sword, the result would be exactly the same. In that case, he might as well listen to Jack this once. The only problem was that he had never used a spear before, so he had no idea how to handle it. Right then, Jack suddenly reached out, pointed at the stone, and reminded Rengiz, "Thrust straight ahead and don't think about anything. Just thrust straight into it." Although they had only just met, Rengiz somehow felt that Jack was incredibly reliable, and the words he had just spoken carried great weight. Under normal circumstances, Rengiz had never imagined that the regeneration stone could be broken with a single straight thrust of a spear. But hearing Jack sound so confident, Rengiz guessed that he must have tried this before, and he decided to follow Jack's words. In that moment, Rengis's gaze immediately became far more resolute. Since Jack believed in him, he also wanted to try believing in himself, at least this once. Rengiz gripped the shaft of the spear tightly with both hands, firmly steadied his center of gravity, and formed a powerful, attacking stance. Strangely, from the moment he had first picked up a sword until now, he had never once felt the flow of strength circulating so powerfully through his body. And that made Rengiz even more confident. He shouted, then thrust forward with an empty mind, exactly as Jack had instructed. The instant the spear tip struck the regeneration stone, Reynolds' group in the stands burst into laughter. "See, I told you, just changing weapons won't help him accomplish anything." This time, when Rengiz attacked, he had a very strange feeling. He felt as if that spear had always been a part of his body, and that allowed the pure strength within his body to be fully unleashed through this straight thrust. As for Reynolds' group, it seemed they had laughed too soon, because Rengiz had not merely scratched the regeneration stone, he had even pierced straight through it. "Well done, Rengiz." Jack was the first to speak after Rengis's action shocked the entire stand into silence, and he did not forget to add a round of applause to encourage him. Rengiz himself had only just snapped back to his senses, and when he saw the scene before him, he could hardly believe that he had just pierced through the regeneration stone. Only when the dragon examiner announced that Rengiz was qualified to pass the exam did he seem to wake from a dream and return to reality. "I passed," Rengiz asked, still in that voice that sounded as if he was about to cry. "That's right, you did it, and even better than I expected." Jack walked over, put an arm around his new friend's shoulders, and kept praising him for how well he had done. Rengiz trembled for a long while, then both of his eyes reddened. Tears began to spill out, and he was so moved that he even threw himself forward and hugged Jack tightly. Gaining the qualifications to enter Dragon's Lair was naturally something Rengiz had always wanted, but not once had he truly believed he could do it. Yet now, he had truly done it, and had even surpassed expectations. In contrast to Rengis's happiness, the children who had always bullied him, led by Reynolds, had now turned pale with fear. Even after seeing what had just happened with their own eyes, they still refused to acknowledge Rengis's strength and only believed that he had gotten lucky. Rengiz was also the last person to take part in this exam. After the test ended, the entrance ceremony was quickly held. Jack was somewhat surprised by this rather rushed development, so he turned and asked, "That's it? Then we enroll right away." "Yeah, there will be other tests after we start attending," Rengiz answered. "Then what do we need to do now?" Jack asked again. "Well, there probably won't be much for us to do." Their conversation was interrupted when a luxurious carriage appeared. Through the dragon examiner's introduction, the children learned that this was the leadership of the Dragon clan. Afterward, there would be a congratulatory speech for those who had just successfully passed the test. Leading the group was a white-haired man with an icy face. Jack could not help asking, "Who is that gloomy man?" Hearing him say that, Rungis turned pale with fright. "Oh my goodness, that's the clan head." Well, it makes sense that Jack wouldn't know, since he had never met the clan head, who was also his father. But the clan head has a face like that. Can't he look a little more cheerful? Even ice and snow might be warmer than him. Jack continued muttering. This time, however, Rungis covered his mouth with his hand, because what Jack had just said was truly far too disrespectful toward the head of the clan. "Please be quiet, okay? I'm begging you," Rungis pleaded. Only after Jack nodded slightly did Rungis dare to let go. He guessed that if Jack knew that the cold-faced man was his father, he would probably be even more shocked. From quite a distance away, Jack focused on observing the people who currently held the greatest power in the clan. Around the clan head were several 7-star experts, along with a fair number of 6-star warriors. Of course, they could not compare to his 10-star level in his previous life, but this was already a formidable force. As for the current clan head, Banza L. Dragon, Jack guessed that he had reached the 8-star rank. In the era of Jack's previous life, there had not even been 12 people in the entire world who reached this level. Jack did not know what this era was like. He did not know whether there were many people who had reached 8-star rank. But there was one thing he was extremely certain of. "I don't like him." Jack could not even hold himself back from saying aloud, making Rungis jump in fright once again. But in truth, when Jack saw this man who was his father in this life, all he felt was dislike. After that, Banza, in his capacity as clan head, walked to the center and spoke a few precious words. He told the children who had just passed the exam that they should strive to become the flesh and blood of El Dragon, and that the road ahead would be even more difficult. To intimidate this future generation from the start, Banza even deliberately released a bit of his power. It was not much, but it was enough to pressure the children and make them feel suffocated. Jack alone was the exception. He looked at Rungis beside him and the other children around them, and discovered that all of them were being suppressed by his father's pressure to the point that even breathing had become difficult. This made Jack's impression of Banza even worse. Jack did not know what had happened, but he truly did not like this man. Banza really only said that single sentence, then turned and left. Next, another tall man spoke up. This person seemed much less gloomy. Yes, those were truly precious words of encouragement. "Remember, Lord Banza has rather high expectations for you all, so I won't waste too many words on greetings. Work hard, young people." His ringing voice echoed throughout the stands, making Jack wonder who this tall man was. Although he did not know and did not understand what was going on, it was clear that after the man spoke, the atmosphere changed and became much easier to breathe in. The other children were finally able to relax a little, while Jack kept the same cold expression from beginning to end. Once the speeches were finished, the dragon examiner moved on to announcing the dormitory assignments. He required the children whose names were called to stand up and move immediately. Aren't we all staying in the same place? Why do we still need assignments? Jack turned again to ask Rungis, his walking encyclopedia. According to Rungis, Jack then learned that there were actually 4 dragons' lairs. The students who enrolled would be assigned to the halls corresponding to the 4 directions: east, west, south, and north. And so, Jack was assigned to the Easter Dragon's lair. After 1,000 years, many things really had changed. He carried the map with him, but still got lost in his own dormitory. My roommates should all have arrived by now, right? As Jack thought this, he turned the doorknob, then took the initiative to greet the people inside. "Sorry I'm late. Starting today, we'll be sharing this room." Jack raised an eyebrow and gave a bright smile. "Looks like we have quite the fate between us, Rungis." Rungis also smiled until his eyes curved and replied, "It really does. I was worried I'd be staying alone." "This is great." Jack dropped himself onto the bed. "There's nothing else to do today?" Rungis walked over and answered, "Right. Training will start tomorrow." Hearing that, Jack looked dejected. "Right." This made Rungis somewhat suspicious. "Were you even listening?" The instructor said that. Jack immediately raised a thumb and replied with complete confidence, "I wasn't listening at all." That's not something to brag about. Seeing this, Rungis straightened his back and gave him a serious reminder. "In any case, we should sleep early. Training starts tomorrow." Jack looked at the sunset outside the window and let out a soft sigh. Images from the past gradually appeared in his mind. I had planned to run away from this boring house and go adventuring, but that regeneration stone and that medicine. Too many interesting things happened during the entrance exam. At this point, Jack's gaze sharpened with interest. In order to understand what has changed after 1,000 years, staying with the El Dragon clan for a while longer doesn't sound bad. 1 month later, the early morning sunlight shone down on the palace. All the children were straining themselves through intense training. Listen, the dragon breath I taught you is an outstanding breathing technique created by the 15th clan head of the El Dragon clan, the Dragon Examiner, kept shouting loudly, making them even more exhausted. You must use this secret art skillfully in every situation. Suddenly, his gaze paused slightly when he saw something. Unlike the other children, Laika was training with extreme ease. He thought to himself, many people have already mastered dragon breath, especially since the young lady's primal energy is showing signs of spilling outside her body, proving that she is about to reach 2-star rank. But did not stop there. The Dragon Examiner became even more astonished. And that boy, when he saw Jack not only holding steady, but even keeping the stones on his body in place, he thought, what is this? Now, he almost could not believe his eyes. It is true that the clan head's blood also flows in him, but he has had no instructor and no formal education. So what is this scene? Jack parted his lips slightly to control the rhythm of his breathing. I never expected that the Dragon King's breath technique I created would be modified and spread widely under the name Dragon Breath. Magical energy enveloped his entire body. Breathing techniques were skills that absorbed energy from the air into the body and circulated it in order to improve one's own power. What determined their effectiveness was the user's skill and finesse. Therefore, prestigious families all created their own methods, and complete secret arts were kept hidden as the highest secrets. At this moment, Jack silently evaluated Dragon Breath. It's fairly safe and easy to learn, but if the purpose is only to calm the mind, I don't need it. That was because he had his own method. The secret art, Dragon King's Breath, passed down by Fast El Dragon, was the only breathing technique that allowed one to control energy without interrupting the breath, even while moving. Its effects were enormous, but very few people could inherit it because it was too difficult. Jack quietly analyzed it in his mind, then smiled with satisfaction. So they deliberately simplified it so that anyone could use it, and from there, the overall strength of the clan rose. I never expected my technique to be passed down to later generations in such an altered form. How touching. I wonder if the other martial arts have also changed after 1,000 years. I'm really looking forward to it. At this moment, Laika also had to take notice when she saw his smug smile. The scene then shifted to mealtime, where all the students were replenishing their energy after training. However, everyone could not help marveling at Jack's appetite, while he continued devouring one bite after another with no sign of stopping. Jack raised his eyes, looked at everyone's expressions, and could not help wondering, what's wrong? You look deep in thought, Rengiz. You won't get stronger if you don't eat, you know. Across from him, Rengiz looked utterly exhausted. Why are you so full of energy? Your stamina is really strange. Jack immediately explained, that's because you're too weak. Then Jack pushed a plate of pastries in front of Rengiz. Eat more and train hard. There's no other way for you. This made Rengiz only grimace. I already have my own portion. At this moment, Jack's gaze suddenly noticed the person behind him. Still, there really are a few kids who have been trained well. Suddenly, Laika walked up to Jack and praised him. Hey, you're pretty good, aren't you? Jack wondered who she was. He raised his head in boredom and asked back, who are you? Behind him, Rengiz was so shocked that he nearly choked on his water. He quickly whispered, Jack, you don't know? This is Lady Laika, the clan head's daughter. But Jack still replied calmly, no idea. Rengiz instantly panicked. No way. She's one of the candidates for the position of next clan head. Normally, we wouldn't even be qualified to speak with her. Seeing this, Jack pushed him aside and replied, if you put it that way, I'm also the clan head's son, even if I am illegitimate. Those words immediately entered Laika's ears, surprising the girl. Really? Laika widened her eyes and confirmed again. You're the clan head's illegitimate child? Hearing that, Jack replied calmly, why would I lie about something like that? The girl wondered again. Then why are you so strong that you can crush the regeneration stone with your bare hands? Suddenly, Laika slammed the table and spoke in an indignant tone. How can an illegitimate child with no backing do something like that? But Jack remained extremely indifferent. Well, because I'm me. Ringiz, stop staring blankly and eat. This left the girl stunned, unable to say anything for a moment. Then Laika laughed with interest. You really are very interesting. After that, the girl sat down confidently and proposed. How about it? Become my subordinate. This made Jack feel that it was truly ridiculous. What are you talking about? Laika narrowed her eyes and gave him a tempting offer. I'm asking whether you want to become someone under my command. I'll be your backing. An illegitimate child should want allies too, right? Every word the girl said was extremely persuasive. In that case, use your strength to help me become clan head. Of course, I'll treat you well after I become clan head. How about it? But none of it could sway Jack. He answered, no thanks. It was the first time anyone had dared to reject her, so Laika asked in confusion, why? Don't tell me. The girl's gaze sharpened dangerously. You also intend to. Laika's pupils seemed as if they wanted to bore deep into the other person's mind, but seize the position of clan head. Meanwhile, Jack was examining the girl's energy. She's at the threshold of 2-star rank. To be able to release spiritual energy outside her body at this age. Interesting, but now, Jack could only speak helplessly. If you want to do it, then do it. I have no interest in becoming clan head or anything like that. His lack of interest in clan affairs made Laika seem unable to believe it. What? Then what else is there? Suddenly, a sensation brushed past her, causing the girl to freeze without realizing it. Without the slightest hesitation, Jack stabbed his knife hard into the tabletop. The blade was only a little short of touching the girl's fingers. Jack raised his head and forced a smile, but a dense killing intent radiated from him. I don't serve anyone. His pupils shone brightly, filled with ambition and madness. Because I am the strongest. Seeing this, Laika became even more confused. What? Even the girl herself did not understand why she had become so wary. Am I being intimidated? Faced with this tense scene, Ringiz quickly spoke up to defuse the situation. Calm down first. After 1 second of silence, Laika raised her head and declared, then I'll force you to submit. Fight me. That made even Jack, who was devouring his food, stop. At this moment, a group of students had gathered and headed into the corridor. Where are you going? One student asked. Another immediately answered, the training field. There's a match between new students. He looked extremely hurried, and it involves Lady Laika. This made the other student curious. Lady Laika? From the Typhona clan? Against who? Why? The other replied, who knows? When they arrived at the training field, the students kept discussing it. They said this was a duel. Someone nearby asked curiously, who is that guy? Only now did Jack scratch his head in confusion. This is getting troublesome. Beside him, Ringiz was no less worried. My lord, are you all right? Your opponent is Lady Laika. But Jack still answered calmly. Even if you say that, I still don't know who she is. And why did you suddenly start speaking so formally? Ringiz tried to explain. Of course, my lord. You are the clan head's son. Hearing this, Jack nodded. Do whatever you want. Ringiz shook Jack's hand hard and shouted. More importantly, please think carefully. Laika is the daughter of the current clan head, Banza, and she also carries the bloodline of the Typhona clan, one of the 4 great pillar families of the Eldragon House. She is a genius who comprehended every variation of the great Thundersword secret art, the legacy of the Typhona clan, at the age of 7, just like your other extremely talented siblings. Banja, however, none of these words reached Jack's ears. Sorry, the only thing I understand is that she's the daughter of the clan head. Ringiz looked as if he could not believe it. Why? Jack immediately replied, everything is new to me right now. Ringiz could only clutch his head. Why is this happening? Jack also grew more impatient. Don't ask. Jack's next words made Ringiz pause for a moment. Jack laughed with delight, but not knowing makes it even more interesting, doesn't it? Extremely interesting. Ringiz, meanwhile, kept trying his hardest to explain. No matter how strong you are, Lord Jack, facing Lady Laika is still far too disadvantageous. Why would you accept her challenge? Jack rubbed his chin and replied, well, when someone challenges me, I don't back down. Right after that, Jack looked toward Laika. She seemed ready as well. The girl planted her sword against the ground and said this little chat. Laika's gaze sharpened, and a powerful killing aura radiated from her. That ends here. Laika braced her sword against the ground and loudly asked, are you done chatting? Jack gave an extremely confident smile. Ready. Everything's settled. At that moment, Ringiz could only warn him anxiously. Please, just be careful. As for Jack, he appeared completely self-assured. Huh, careful? That depends on you. Why are you so determined to challenge me? The girl looked straight at Jack without hiding anything. I want to become clan head. To do that, I have to make you submit and join me. Hearing that, Jack looked bored. What do you mean? What does that have to do with me? Seeing this, Leica suddenly understood. Wait, you don't know anything about the current situation in your family? Is it because you're an illegitimate child? Jack immediately avoided her gaze. Well, I might know something if you ask me directly. The girl raised her hand and began to explain. Listen carefully. Including me, there are 5 candidates for the position of the next clan head. Everyone except you is already allied with one of the 4 branches of the El Dragon clan. Leica explained carefully and thoroughly. Which branch produces the next clan head is extremely important. That is why all of us have to be present at Dragon's Lair, representing our respective branches and competing against one another. I need more strength to stand against my brothers. At this point, Jack understood. So right now, there's a confrontation between the 4 clan branches? How complicated? I'm not sure I understand it. Outwardly, he tried to stay calm. I see. The girl tightened her grip on the hilt of her sword and added, therefore, as a candidate for the next clan head, I need to strengthen my resources even more. As soon as she finished speaking, Leica forcefully pulled up her sword. That is why. Seeing this, Jack's gaze also became slightly guarded. The girl leapt high into the air and declared bluntly, right here, I will defeat you. Yet with only a slight sidestep, Jack dodged her attack. Every blow Leica launched was quickly dodged by Jack. The girl remained extremely determined. I won't let you get away. Outside, the students could not help exclaiming in admiration. So fast. The person beside them also sighed in awe. She handles that gigantic heavy sword so easily. At that moment, their eyes met, causing Leica to pause slightly. This match had drawn the attention of quite a few students. Her control over her source of power is incredibly precise, and her attacks are getting faster and faster. So this is the strength of an heir to one of the clan branches. The power of a child from the main clan. It's only a matter of time before this match reaches its conclusion. By now, the girl also seemed to have become aware of her opponent's ability. Every blow Leica launched was dodged by Jack. He even looked quite relaxed. I can't land a single hit. Watching everything, Rengiz could not help staring blankly and exclaiming, amazing. While dodging, Jack rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I've never seen this kind of martial technique before, and this speed isn't something you'd expect from someone at 1-star rank. That nearly drove the girl mad. Shut up and focus on the fight. Only then did Jack's hand move slightly. I am focusing. That's exactly why. Confusion appeared clearly in Leica's eyes as Jack acted. With a single movement, the girl was subdued. That I can counterattack like this. Leica's eyes widened, and for a moment, she could not react in time. The girl could only drop to her knees, clutching her stomach tightly. This scene immediately threw the students into an uproar. No way. Every one of Lady Leica's attacks missed? Who is that guy? Now Leica could not help wondering, why won't my attacks hit you? Against someone at 1-star rank like you, I should be overwhelmingly faster. I should be much faster than you. Jack replied, you're definitely much faster than any 1-star rank fighter I've met before. Suddenly, his gaze turned cold. But you're still only at 1-star rank. The girl felt unconvinced. Aren't you 1-star too? You shouldn't be able to keep up with my movements. Hearing that, Jack simply shrugged. It's simple. Then he calmly analyzed it for Leica. Your breathing, your movements, your eyes, the way your muscles tense. The more the girl listened, the more she hated it. Just by observing those things, you can read most movements. The rest comes down to experience. In the next instant, Leica charged straight at Jack and shouted, ridiculous, but he still managed to avoid her attacks. I told you. Jack flipped backward to evade his opponent's blow, then prepared to punch the girl in the stomach. But I can read you. Leica could not react in time and was sent flying far away. Jack's gaze sharpened as he held his stance. The students immediately fell into chaos. Lady Leica, impossible. Did she really lose? Lady Leica lost. Over on the other side, Rengiz also looked shocked. Lord Jack is incredible. He defeated Lady Leica. But Jack only said softly, not yet. At that moment, the girl had forced herself back up amid the chaos. Jack rested a hand against his side and carefully analyzed her. She focused all of her source of power into her core to withstand my blow. She's no ordinary opponent. Leica held her stomach and struggled to breathe. This sight also left Rengiz flustered. Lady Leica, that's enough. But before he could finish, Jack warned him, Rengiz, step back. I won't be responsible if you get caught in the attack. Then Jack slowly walked toward Laika. She showed signs of it earlier, but has she really reached 2-star rank? He saw 2 glittering rays of light on the girl's chest. The students also kept talking. Hey, isn't that? Someone immediately answered. That's right. There's no mistake. That's the mark of 2-star rank. A white aura. The object on Laika showed 2-star status, the state in which one can release one source of power outside the body to use martial techniques. The released power is called aura. The girl stood up straight and said softly, thanks. Because of you, I reached 2-star rank. And now, in the very next instant, Laika's gaze sharpened. The girl charged straight at Jack with unexpected speed. You have no chance of winning anymore. Jack could not hide his excitement. Wow, that's really fast. Even so, Jack could still dodge with ease. How surprising. Suddenly, he paused slightly when he felt a cut on his cheek. What is this? Jack held his cheek and wondered. I remember dodging. On the other side, Laika looked extremely pleased. See? A powerful killing aura radiated all around the girl. This is my ability. Then Laika tightened her grip on the sword in her hand. Now that I have 2-star aura. The girl's eyes blazed as she shouted, I'll show you a true lightning sword technique. But Jack only responded indifferently. So I get to witness a martial technique I've never seen before? Jack grinned, unable to hide his delight. Awesome. A loud shout rang out. Lightning Gritzwald technique. Lightning flash. Brilliant golden lightning flashed, forming an extremely powerful horizontal sword slash. Laika swung her sword, sending a barrage of lightning toward Jack. As he ran, he spoke. Wait, what is this? Jack continued. You mean you're controlling lightning? That's way too absurd. The girl continued swinging her sword at him and spoke to the one saying such things. For someone saying that, you look like you're enjoying it quite a lot. Laika shouted, lightning net. Brilliant golden arcs of electricity spread everywhere, blowing up large rocks and sending Jack flying high into the air. Jack spoke, this is completely different from before. These bolts of lightning are pretty troublesome even for me right now. A voice rang out as Jack tried to hold firm against Laika's lightning. What kind of battle is this? Just going up 1 rank changed everything that much? Rengiz watched the fight in terror. He called out loudly, Lord Jack. Jack looked at Laika and thought, right now, her movements themselves are actually fairly simple. Not much has changed from before. But the moment she reached 2-star rank and obtained aura, the power of her lightning greatsword erupted violently. I thought she had only gotten faster than before, but now she's even faster than that. And that lightning is mysterious. Jack continued reasoning, for lightning to cover a person's body like this. I could counterattack now. But after observing Laika from behind, he told himself, I'm really curious what this power truly is. The girl looked at Jack and spoke. You can still smile in a situation like this? You still look so relaxed. In that case, Laika swung her arm forcefully, unleashing a powerful sword strike straight toward Jack. The girl declared, I'll kick that smile off your face. Jack lifted his leg and dodged Laika's attack. The girl had no intention of showing mercy. Laika shouted again, lightning flash shift. She swung her sword, carrying golden energy as she charged straight toward him. Jack quickly dodged. While avoiding the girl's lightning flash attacks, he spoke. It's like a lightning rod, isn't it? Laika spun around and swung her sword hard, creating a dazzling stream of light that swept across the ground. Rengiz shouted in alarm and rushed out despite his teammates trying to stop him. Lord Jack, hey wait, Jack softly smiled confidently, his gaze incredibly sharp and resolute. Laika continued swinging her sword and shouted, lightning flash. A brilliant, blazing golden light burst forth powerfully, sweeping straight toward him. Jack braced himself on one leg and raised the other high, avoiding the girl's attack. Rengiz hurriedly ran over and cried, Lady Laika, please stop. If you keep going then, the girl spoke. Why? Isn't he still standing? Surrounded by lightning, Laika turned to look at him and said, Don't you think stopping now would be an insult to him? Rengiz shouted, Lord Jack, please surrender. Laika spoke. Actually, I think he's right. You're already in terrible condition. How about this? If you surrender and submit under my command, I'll stop here. Jack remained silent, as if he were thinking about something. The girl looked at Jack and said, So even if you're only an illegitimate child, you're still a proud Eldragon. I understand. Fine then. I'll finish you with my full strength. Laika gripped the sword hilt firmly with both hands, raised it straight toward the sky, and shouted, Greatsword martial art, first secret technique, heavenly thunder, golden energy shot forward from her position. A gigantic, blazing golden pillar of light descended onto Jack, shattering the rocks and sending everything flying into the air. He screamed in pain as brilliant golden bolts of electricity clung tightly to his entire body. Ringies shouted in terror, "Lord Jack." Jack lay motionless among the broken rocks, his body still giving off thick smoke. Like his precious sword, set with blazing red gems, was driven deep into the crumbling stone ground. The girl spoke. "A pity, but the match ends here." Unexpectedly, a voice rang out. "I understand now." A golden energy appeared behind Laika, startling the girl. Laika asked, "How is that possible? Why do you have lightning aura?" Jack answered calmly, "Oh, so this is called lightning aura?" He looked at the girl and continued, "You're asking how? How surprising." Jack folded his arms across his chest and answered loudly, "I don't know either." Laika stared at him in astonishment, as if there was something she could not understand. Jack looked at the girl and said, "Look, I deliberately took your attacks in order to study this power. But somehow, I became able to use it too." Laika stammered in reply, "Able to use it? That isn't." Jack thought to himself, while receiving those mysterious lightning attacks, "I kept using the breathing technique Dragon King's breath." He continued reasoning, and then what happened? Dragon King's breath reacted with her lightning aura. Jack thought silently, and lightning began accumulating inside my body. Before I realized it, I was able to manipulate that lightning. I don't know the exact principle, but he raised a hand to wipe away his sweat and said, "I must have some kind of special constitution." No, wait. Jack continued speaking. "Considering that greatsword technique is a martial art passed down in her family, should I assume that her entire clan has a special constitution?" He went on, "Then suppose the source of power itself can be based on the properties of lightning." "Yes, this has been excellent training." Jack raised his hand and circulated his power. Golden energy appeared, and he said, "More importantly." Jack looked at Laika and spoke. "Thanks to you, I've also reached 2-star rank." He continued, "The match still isn't." Jack's eyes opened wide as he stared intently ahead. He quickly dodged the girl's incoming slash. Jack looked at Laika, smiled confidently, and said, "That over." A brilliant golden light burst forth powerfully, shattering the rocks and scattering debris everywhere. Jack leapt forward and said, "Well, this is..." Jack reflected, "Now that my source of power has increased, it affects all my nerves and reinforces my body. What an astonishing special constitution. All of my senses have been enhanced." His eyes looked into the distance, and his voice grew low. "I need to get used to a little." At that moment, Rengiz looked at Jack and thought, a battle between candidates for clan head. Just watching it, I can barely keep up. He continued thinking, am I imagining things? Lady Laika's thunder-like slashes can't hit him anymore. Laika angrily shouted, "Are you mocking me?" Jack looked at the girl, smiled, and replied, "I'm not teasing you." He continued speaking, "I truly do see you as a formidable opponent." Laika swung her sword hard at Jack again, and he calmly dodged. Jack thought to himself, is the gap here? It's time to end this match. He spoke. "It's been a while now, hasn't it? How about I create a new technique?" The girl, still gripping her sword tightly, asked in confusion, her eyes never leaving Jack. "A technique?" He answered, "That's right. First form. No, maybe I should call it secret form. Like a spoke. A technique?" So he really did receive training in some secret martial art from one of the clan branches, and he's creating a technique that easily? I truly can't understand him. Jack spoke and moved closer to the distracted girl. "You're distracted." Lyca's eyes widened in terror as she cried, "Not good." But Jack was faster. Jack shouted, "Dragon Devastation, Secret Form, Extreme Lightning Claw." Very quickly, he unleashed an incredibly powerful strike toward the girl. Laika was stunned as brilliant golden bolts of electricity suddenly clung tightly to her body. The girl sank down, releasing her sword in a helpless state. An announcement rang out. "Match over." Rengiz looked toward Jack with eyes full of admiration. Jack spoke excitedly. That really was an interesting match. At Jack's feet, Laika had collapsed before anyone realized it. The girl forced out the words, "Impossible. I lost." Laika gritted her teeth and muttered softly, I absolutely have to become clan head." Tears fell from the girl's eyes, as she spoke. I have to defeat my brothers. Laika hardened her resolve. I have to become clan head. I absolutely cannot lose. Jack looked at the girl and spoke. Wow, that was amazing. How should I put it? You're really strong. Laika was surprised as she saw him slowly sit down and say, I learned something new. It was truly interesting. This really was an incredibly meaningful time. Jack slowly reached his hand toward the girl, as if intending to help Laika up. He kept his hand extended toward the girl and smiled. It would be boring if this were the only time we sparred. Let's spar again, Laika. The girl blushed as she looked at Jack, remaining silent. Jack kept a bright smile on his face as he looked at the girl and said, I'm really looking forward to next time. Laika reached out and took his hand, saying, How could I ever compare to you? I lost. A few hours later, inside the rift, a horde of strangely shaped monsters with blazing red eyes advanced beneath the night sky. A man in a black cloak stood quietly among the dense swarm of monsters under the starlight. Wearing his black cloak, he led the one-eyed monsters forward beneath the glittering star-filled sky. That man was Banja. He shouted, Dragon Might. Immediately, behind Banja appeared a gigantic red dragon with its mouth open, roaring thunderously. He reached up and pulled the sword from his chest onto his back. Behind Banja, the monsters still refused to let him go. Banja shouted, Dragon Energy Annihilation Array Martial Art, First Form, Origin. Immediately, he swung his hand, creating a blazing red circle of light that burned away everything around him. A crimson slash swept across, instantly tearing the one-eyed monsters apart. Banja quietly sheathed his sword after wiping out the enemies. The envoys had arrived, and they quickly ran forward, also to protect him. Banja, he silently walked toward the white light ahead. A subordinate stood before him, bowed, and said, Lord Baza, I have something to report. He replied coldly, What is it? Simon looked at Baza and said, Miss Laika has reached 2-star rank. He suddenly stopped for a moment, as if thinking. Baza turned back and asked, So? Simon lowered his head and continued. Reaching 2-star rank at her age can be considered a remarkable achievement. With Miss Laika's talent, by the time she graduates from Dragon's Lair, she may reach 4-star. No, she may even reach 5-star rank. He said, Talent is irrelevant. Report to me when the girl becomes useful. If you came to report such a trivial matter, then get lost. Simon said, but Miss Laika was defeated. Baza turned back in surprise and asked, Did she challenge one of the older children? Simon answered, No. The one who defeated Miss Laika was a child her own age, young Master Jack. He murmured, Jack? The son of that woman. Baza continued, That does make sense. That woman had natural talent in martial arts. But he looked at Simon and asked again, Even so, she died when that boy was born, didn't she? Who taught him the skills to defeat a 2-star? Simon replied, About that. Young Master Jack defeated Miss Laika without being taught by anyone, and he reached 2-star rank through his own efforts. Baza said, I see. Then begin the first training course. Simon looked at him in surprise and asked, I don't mean to question you, but isn't it too early? They have only been formally learning combat for about a month, and most of the children haven't even reached 1-star rank yet. Baza questioned him, So what? Whether they have learned combat or not, death treats everyone fairly. And only the strong can survive. Those who cannot even overcome the first trial, no matter how many stars they have, are not worthy of becoming Eldragons. Simon looked at him respectfully and said, As you command. I will report it to Frisia. Simon looked at Baza in shock and asked, Frisia? He answered, Yes. The fact that the boy defeated Laika through his own strength is quite interesting. As Baza walked away, he said, Frisia will be assigned to supervise the contents and the entire process. Tell her to keep a close eye on the boy throughout the trial. Simon replied loudly and clearly, Yes. As Baza walked on, he muttered, Jack, was it? How interesting. The next day, everyone was focused on training. Rengiz was no exception. He worked very hard. As Jack trained, he thought, Dragon Seal Combat Art. Today's plan, double the weightlifting, 1 large stone, 2 medium stones, and horse stance. He thought to himself, like Dragon Breath, this is a technique created by the 15th clan head. Although it is called a combat art, it is essentially a body-strengthening technique. It was designed so completely that even children can easily master it. Rengiz looked at him in confusion and asked, Young Master Jack, aren't you going to train? Jack answered, "What are you talking about?" "I am training." Rengiz said, "Ah no, I don't mean physical training. I mean training in the Dragon Seal combat art." Without looking at Rengiz, Jack replied, "I already learned it." Rengiz cried out in shock, "What? You only learned it just now, and you've already mastered it?" Jack answered, "Of course. More importantly, Rengiz, the flow of your power is going in the wrong direction." Rengiz stared at him in surprise, as if he still could not believe what he had heard. Jack set down the things he had been training with and said, "Here." He pointed at Rengiz and said, "Look, turn around." Rengiz whispered, "Did I just float?" "Ah, yes." A golden light, like lightning, appeared. Jack quickly sent it into Rengiz's body, to his astonishment. Jack continued, "This is the correct flow." Rengiz said, "Thank you very much, sir." He turned to look at Jack and asked, "You really have mastered it?" "As expected of you, young Master Jack." A loud shout rang out, "Are you doubting me? What kind of person are you?" Rengiz spoke in confusion. "I'm sorry. That isn't what I meant." He clasped his hands together and said, "This is the first time anyone other than my father has ever taught me, so I've always been desperate." Rengiz continued, "But young Master Jack, you already have martial skills powerful enough to defeat Miss Laika, so I thought the Dragon Seal combat art might be simple and boring to you." Jack stood with his arms crossed and looked at Rengiz. "That is not true at all. I'm thoroughly impressed by the stability of the Dragon Seal combat art." He thought, after all, my Dragon Devastation technique was not suitable for my sons. They considered it too complicated and difficult. A voice rang out. "The Dragon Devastation combat art is complex and difficult, but it is superior in its overwhelming power. As a combat art, its forms begin with the first form, then the second, third, and fourth. In addition, there is a secret form created from the battle with Laika. And there also exists the final form, a form with overwhelming destructive power that once defeated the divine dragon." He thought to himself, "I'm also very curious about the other dragon techniques. Perhaps those martial skills have been modified as well. How exciting." Jack said cheerfully, "Anyway, since I have finished learning the Dragon Seal combat art, I am training my body as usual." He continued, "Everyone will learn at their own pace." Rengiz looked at him excitedly and said, "I understand." Jack was surprised when Rengiz called his name. "Young Master Jack." Rengiz raised his voice. "Please train me. I want you to guide me, just like you did a moment ago." Jack looked at Rengiz in surprise. Rengiz said, "I know this is a shameful request, but Rengiz gathered his courage and said, "I want to become stronger, even if only a little." Jack looked at him and said, "I don't mind." Rengiz cried out in surprise. Is that all right?" "Really?" Jack asked in confusion. "What is that reaction?" "You're the one who asked." Jack looked at Rengiz and said, "I don't lie. Besides, you deserve it." Laika, who was standing nearby, spoke up. "Hey," the girl continued, "in that case, me too. I want you to train me as well." Rengiz said in surprise, Miss Laika too?" The girl looked at him and asked, "Is there a problem?" Laika continued, "Honestly, I thought no one my age could defeat me, because I am a candidate to become the next clan head. But in yesterday's battle, you overwhelmed me. Somehow, you manifested a lightning aura and used it better than I could." The girl said, "My pride was completely shattered by you." Jack, seeming not to understand, turned to Rengiz and asked, "Is that my fault?" Rengiz hesitated and replied, "Well, Laika said, but I want to become even stronger. Strong enough to defeat my brothers, and you too." Rengiz anxiously watched Jack, who was deep in thought, and said nothing. Laika lowered her head and said softly, a hint of embarrassment gradually appearing on her face, "Is that not allowed?" "I understand. Since you are also a potential successor, training with your rival must not be acceptable." Rengiz looked over anxiously and thought, "Come to think of it, he really is also a candidate to become the heir." Jack rested his chin on his hand and thought, as expected, even though he is an illegitimate child, he is still the clan head's son. After a while, he finally spoke seriously. "I don't mind, but is your body really all right? That injury should have left you unable to move for a month." Hearing this, Laika suddenly remembered, "I used a recovery potion, so there's no problem. You worry about strange things." As soon as the girl finished speaking, the two boys leaned their heads together and whispered among themselves, "I see. That bizarre medicine is still as effective as a miracle drug." Rengiz covered his mouth and replied, "If you mean the potion from the entrance exam, that one wasn't that effective. Then he smiled and crooked a finger. With Miss Laika's personality, she must have used a better type this time. Jack smirked and said, "What a wonderful era, isn't it?" By now, Laika's face was red with anger. "What do you mean by that? Without a recovery potion, I really wouldn't have been able to move for a month." But more importantly, the girl pointed at herself and asked firmly, "So you really will train me? You must need time to train on your own too." Jack opened his mouth and laughed loudly. "Of course, I would never refuse an ambitious young person." Those words immediately confused Laika. "A young person? You're young too, aren't you?" Rengiz also could not help replying. "We're the same age." Jack calmly admitted, "That is true." Then he cheerfully teased her. "Are you sure, Laika? I'm the one who defeated you, remember?" Laika raised an eyebrow and replied, "That is not a problem. I have no right to be picky." At this point, the girl clenched her fist with determination. "If becoming stronger means becoming the clan head, then I will do anything." This made Jack even more curious. "When you challenged me before, you also mentioned the position of clan head, didn't you? Why are you so obsessed with becoming clan head? Laika, that is obvious." The girl explained seriously, "If I do not become clan head, marriage will be the only future waiting for me, a political marriage. If I am lucky, I will become the wife of some unpleasant cousin. If not, I will be forced to become someone's concubine." When she finished speaking, Jack's face immediately darkened. He questioned her in a low voice. "What?" Laika did not deny it. "That's right. Maintaining the El Dragon bloodline is that important, especially for the 4 great families. You know that too, don't you? Our true primal energy is unique. That means it can be used in countless ways." At that moment, killing intent radiated from Jack, making Rengiz tremble. "We should run. Those bastards. Just thinking about it makes me sick." Jack clenched his fists and shouted in anger. "What do they think people are, those fools? Doing things like that, and this too. I will destroy every last one of those damned old customs." Just then, a piercing sound suddenly rang out behind them. "Focus," Laika said in surprise. "What's going on?" Rengiz silently cried. "That scared me to death." Jack, however, replied in frustration, "What timing, right at such an important moment." While the 3 children were still turning their heads to look forward, a head of blazing red hair suddenly appeared from behind them. The envoy spoke sternly. "Starting today, a new instructor will be joining us. Although she has a busy schedule, she has personally come to guide all of you. Be grateful." That person, a woman, calmly tucked the girl's hair behind her ear. "You must be Miss Laika, correct?" That tone immediately made Laika jolt and turn her head to look. The girl quickly dodged away. Rengiz clung tightly to Jack and screamed in fear, while the woman opened her mouth in admiration. "Oh my!" She raised her hand with interest and praised. "What wonderful reflexes. Your spiritual aura is not bad either." Jack thought in confusion. I didn't sense her presence at all. Beside him, Rengiz was still trembling. "Oh my heavens, who in the world is this person?" At that moment, the envoy raised his hand to introduce her. "This is," but Simon cheerfully interrupted, "as nimble as always, aren't you?" He called her warmly by name, Lady Frisia. She also smiled brightly and replied, "Hello. It's a pleasure to meet everyone." With that, Frisia glanced downward. "And you must be young Master Jack." He nodded in confirmation. "That's right." His attitude immediately surprised Frisia. "You don't seem surprised." Jack remained calm. "There is nothing surprising about you, my lady." However, hearing this, her face suddenly grew tense. Jack's eyes gradually brightened, as if he wanted to see through her. "It seems my lady possesses quite an interesting martial skill." At that moment, Frisia smiled faintly and thought, "I see. No wonder the clan head is paying attention to him." Jack was also secretly calculating. Her concealment technique is truly impressive, but what is even more special is the martial skill she has comprehended. The flow of her true primal energy is concentrated mostly in her lower body. "But I have never seen a flow like this before." Then he could not help imagining, this must be why her footsteps make no sound, even when she is wearing shoes like those. What kind of martial skill is this? How interesting. Just then, Frisia suddenly stamped her clogs hard against the ground. Now she clenched her fists excitedly. "As you have just been told, starting today, I will be your instructor. Let us work hard together." The students below could not help whispering among themselves. "Wait, isn't that the wind goddess, Frisia? Oh my heavens, she's here in the flesh." Amazing. The dragon examiner quickly spoke up. Lady Frisia has reached 6-star rank. She is one of the key members of the Black Dragon Guard. Everyone, learn everything you can from her. Hearing this, all of them grew noisy again. The Black Dragon Guard? The clan head's direct bodyguard unit. Why would someone like that suddenly appear here? A boy asked nervously. Will you really train us, Lady Frisia? She confirmed casually, of course. Just as they were rejoicing, Frisia continued, but she smiled cheerfully. Only if you pass my test. Those words struck the children like a bolt of lightning. A test? So suddenly? However, Frisia gently reassured them. Don't worry. It is fairly easy. You only need to keep this crystal intact and survive on Poison Dragon Mountain for 1 month. Rengiz was so shocked that his mouth fell open. Poison Dragon Mountain. As for Jack, he thought, oh, what a familiar name. Poison Dragon Mountain. It was a land crawling with highly poisonous creatures, a place where even touching an ordinary blade of grass could be fatal. He recalled, it really is a deadly place. Jack pursed his lips and wondered. In my previous life, I often trained there. It gives me goosebumps. The taste was awful, but isn't it a little too early for these children? At that moment, Frisia continued reminding them, if your crystal breaks or is lost during the trial, you will be eliminated immediately. One of them timidly asked, and if we fail, what will happen? She nodded and answered, naturally, you will be expelled if you survive. Frisia explained gently, poisoning can be easily dealt with by using the dragon breath technique correctly. As long as you keep your crystal intact, everything will be fine. Simple, isn't it? Laika protested loudly. But, instructor, there are monsters there too. Frisia also exclaimed, oh my. Immediately after, she held her face and replied calmly, then you only need to defeat them. Otherwise, you will not even have food and you will die before the test ends. Everyone became extremely panicked. What? Can the dragon slaying technique really deal with creatures like that? Frisia continued reassuring them. Do not worry. You still have 5 days before the real trial begins. During those 5 days, each of you will choose one weapon from the foundational martial skills of the El Dragon clan and begin training. With that, she turned away. If I had to say, finding a way to deal with the monsters will make survival easier. But if you cannot master your martial skill within 5 days, Frisia's gaze gradually grew dark. If you cannot master your martial skill within the 5 days before the exam, I will not take responsibility for anything that happens afterward. A boy asked in uncertainty, if the situation turns bad, you will help us, right? Frisia smiled, waved her hand, and sighed, oh dear. She returned to her original stern demeanor. My, this is El Dragon, a place where the weak are eliminated and only the strong can survive. If you cannot fight back against the monsters, then such an end is only natural, is it not? If you cannot even pass a simple test like this, you might as well sleep in a bed together with poison and monsters. As soon as she finished speaking, all the students fell completely silent. No one spoke. Jack silently recalled. This place is far too different from the El Dragon I once knew. A scene from the past appeared. Fast and fast, son. Father, look, this is your grandchild. So cute. He slowly said, I do not understand. What does that mean? Finally, Frisia clapped her hands and called out, all right, that is enough chatter. Now I will distribute the martial skill manuals for each type of weapon. Come and take the manual for the weapon you want. Everyone scattered in different directions. What are you choosing? Me? Which one should I choose? Rengiz trembled violently. What should I do? What should I choose? Jack glanced at him and advised. Rengiz, you should choose the spear. You used it during the entrance exam, didn't you? Rengiz breathed a sigh of relief. That's right. Thank you very much. Beside them, Laika rested her chin on her hand and muttered, there is also the great lightning spirit sword art, though it is only the basic level. However, Jack stopped her. Wait, Laika. He spoke seriously. You should choose swordsmanship. The girl looked puzzled. Me? What? Jack calmly turned away. It will make up for what you are lacking. In the end, Laika breathed out. Well, if you say so, the girl told herself, then I suppose I'll choose this. A few minutes later, Frisia gathered the students together. You have all received your manuals, correct? Then, for the next 5 days until the trial begins. She smiled meaningfully. If you want to survive, train as if your lives depend on it. Otherwise, just go ahead and die. Those words immediately made all the students press their lips together in fear. At that moment, she suddenly remembered something. Right, one more thing. The senior students from the Hall of Reverent Rites will also try to steal your crystals. Rengis's face darkened. Jack, however, was very interested. Now, that's more like it. Frisia continued explaining. The seniors from the previous 15th class will participate in the trial as well, and their mission is to take your crystals. But since there are more of you, and Poison Dragon Mountain is very large, you may not need to worry about running into them. Then she waved her scarf encouragingly. Though they will definitely hunt you down, so do your very best. At this point, Rengiz could not help clutching his face and screaming. What? Not only monsters, but even senior students will attack us. Laika gradually grew tense as well. The students of Class 15 were all at 2-star rank or higher. Even I wouldn't be able to withstand it if several people ambush me at once. In that case, most of the others might not survive. After hearing that, Jack stretched wearily. That's true. Laika was angered by his attitude and snapped. Hey, you. He continued, if you can't manage alone, then form a small group of 2 or 3 people. At that, Jack raised 2 fingers. Cooperating to hunt monsters isn't forbidden either. Isn't it better to have more people? Laika nodded as she understood. That makes sense. Rengiz hurriedly asked, Lord Jack, what will you do? Jack smiled without dodging the question. Me? Naturally, I'll enjoy the trial on my own. Rengiz was so shocked his eyes bulged. Enjoy it? Laika hesitated and said, but even if it's just you, don't tell me you really can. But Jack no longer cared. He quickly turned and left. Come on, before training starts, let's go get something to eat. The girl couldn't help muttering, you really are a strange person. Rengiz nodded. Yes, sometimes he really is. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed, and the sky above the forest was gradually growing bright. Rengiz tightened his grip on the spear in his hand and whispered, all right. A fine day for the trial, isn't it? Beside him, the other students were also chatting and discussing things excitedly. At that moment, Frisia appeared as well. She spoke with practiced ease. Good. It truly is the perfect day for a test. Everyone is here, right? Then let's begin. Hearing this, Rengiz grew even more nervous. The exam day is finally here. Laika also nodded with a soft He continued asking, even though Lord Jack said that, is it really all right for me to go with Lady Laika? After all, there are many people in this class from far more orthodox, noble families than mine. Thinking of this, Rengiz couldn't help tearing up. I'm only a commoner, and I still haven't reached even 1-star rank. Just then, a clear voice suddenly rang out from behind him. We're all the same, Rengiz. Rengiz immediately turned around and called, Celine. Raymond. Celine held her face shyly. I still can't believe a commoner like me gets to accompany Lady Laika. Raymond tilted his head, looked at them, and smiled without speaking. Now, Laika slowly stepped closer. Whether you're nobles or commoners doesn't matter. I'm going with you because I highly value everyone's abilities. Hearing that, Rengiz gripped his spear even tighter. I understand. His expression became extremely determined. I'll do my very best not to become a burden to everyone. Raymond naturally followed up. I'll also work hard, so I won't betray your expectations, my lady. Finally, Laika nodded in understanding. Good. I'm counting on all of you. But are you really going alone, Jack? Jack put his hands on his hips and answered arrogantly, of course. I can't wait any longer. Seeing that, Celine timidly whispered, amazing. I've been feeling anxious this whole time. Raymond agreed. So this is what royal blood feels like. Those words quickly reached Laika's ears, making the girl angry. Hey, don't lump me together with him. I'm trembling too, you know. Jack looked puzzled. You're scared? What's there to worry about? Aren't Laika and all the other outstanding students already gathered here? Standing to the side, Rengiz muttered inwardly, there are actually many reasons for everyone to be worried, Lord Jack. Suddenly, Laika raised an eyebrow and looked at him searchingly. You also think they have ability? Jack smiled calmly. Of course, he silently recalled. She succeeded in gathering the most promising students in the class. Laika has quite a good eye for people. Immediately after that, Jack pointed and continued. Their defensive and offensive abilities are both excellent. Your exam will be easy. Rengiz quietly broke out in a cold sweat. Right? Lord Jack is always this confident. A few minutes later, Frisia quickly approached from somewhere, with many envoys surrounding her from behind. Now, is everyone present? Oh my, so you decided to form a team together? That's not a bad choice either, since some of you probably still haven't mastered martial weapon arts. As soon as she finished speaking, all the students turned to look at her. Frisia raised her hand and continued. Let's begin right away. Everyone has their own crystal, correct? Your mission is to survive for 1 full month on Poison Dragon Mountain while keeping this crystal. She slowly explained. As long as the test ends and the crystal is still in your hands, the exam is over and you will have completed your test. And remember, all the crystals are exactly the same. The students gradually grew confused. So that means Jack's expression darkened. He pursed his lips and told himself, if I lose my crystal, I could just go steal another one back. Frisia's voice rang out again. After you go up the mountain and find a hiding place, your seniors will begin taking your crystals from you. At that moment, an arrogant student sitting on the ground spoke up. Hey, most of them probably haven't even reached 1-star rank, right? The person beside him chimed in. This will be as easy as taking candy from a baby. The students grew even more unsettled. The atmosphere suddenly fell completely silent. Finally, Frisia shouted loudly, all right, the rules of the exam have now been explained. She waved her hand forcefully. All the students rushed up the mountain in a frenzy. The exam begins. Leica did not forget to remind Jack, you must survive. Jack answered in a low voice, you all too. Immediately after that, she instructed her teammates, everyone, let's set out. Everyone replied in unison, yes. Once all the students had left, only Jack remained standing beside Frisia. He waved to encourage her. Be careful. She quickly looked puzzled. Aren't you supposed to go too? Jack clapped his hands. Right, I am. My mistake. I got a little distracted. Frisia raised her eyebrows even higher. Distracted? You're not worried at all? But Jack remained completely calm as he walked forward. He smiled and replied, I have nothing to worry about. Now, if you'll excuse me, examiner. That made her unable to stop herself from muttering. What a strange child. In the blink of an eye, the sky had grown dim. The envoys had also finished setting up their tents at the assembly point. Someone asked quietly, they'll be all right, won't they? Frisia glanced over and asked why. What's the matter? The dragon examiner lowered his head. This test may still be a little too early for the new students. Simon smiled and said, that is true. Although they have grasped the basics, only a few of them have reached the star ranks, and they still lack practical combat experience. He gave a wry smile. I wonder how many of them will pass. Frisia spoke to reassure him. Don't worry. She appeared confident. Poison Dragon Mountain has countless venomous creatures, but the number and quality of monsters are nothing to worry about. Most of them are only 1-star to 2-star rank. Besides, as you can see, the students. At this point, she laughed aloud. Basically, they can handle it. In the end, he could only comply. Yes, understood. However, Frisia lowered her voice again. Even so, I will still release that thing at the end. The dragon examiner, who had been preparing to leave, froze. Excuse me, my lady. I didn't hear clearly. What did you just say? She immediately shook her head. It's nothing. Immediately after that, Frisia gathered all of her students again. Come on. It's time. You all should set out too. She casually tucked her hair behind her ear. Let's see how many will survive. Frisia muttered with interest. I'm really looking forward to this. Deep inside the forest, a sharp-eyed girl noticed something. Hey, you over there. Jack's figure immediately entered her sight. We've already found one. Another student saw this and said contemptuously, after all this time, he's still wandering around a place like this? Is that guy stupid? The girl had also quickly taken out a bow and arrow, her face unable to hide its sinister look. Immediately after that, she decisively shot an arrow straight toward Jack. The arrow flew like lightning, the sound of it whistling through the wind extremely powerful. However, in that single instant, Jack immediately gripped the arrow with perfect accuracy. He snapped it in two in the blink of an eye. I've been waiting for you. Everyone there shouted in shock. Huh? What nonsense is that guy talking about? While they were still dumbfounded, Jack had already rushed forward. Didn't he just block that arrow with his bare hand? Jack called out excitedly. Now, then, let the game begin. Celine, weapon in hand, was trying to avoid being chased by a monster. The girl gripped her long sword and charged straight at it to deliver a powerful thrust. Suddenly, a loud shout startled her. Celine, behind you. Raymond hurried over and raised the shield in his hand toward the monster, blocking its attack. The boy lowered his shield and frowned as he looked ahead. Suddenly, a surge of white energy appeared and struck straight toward the monster. Ringies rushed quickly at the beast, pointing a spear straight at it and finishing it off before Raymond's eyes. A voice rang out. All right, is everyone okay? Ringies looked up and answered, Lady Leica. He cried out in surprise when he saw the sight before him. The young lady had planted her sword in the ground beside her spoils, a heap of monsters that had already fallen in battle. Celine spoke up. Just as the rumors say of Lady Leica, Raymond continued. While we were still screaming in panic, my lady had already defeated so many of them. The girl blushed, raised 2 fingers, and said, "After all, I have reached 2-star rank. This is nothing." More importantly, Leica continued, "Since 1 week after the exam began, you all have grown quite a bit stronger too. Celine and Raymond have also been granted 1-star rank." Celine said softly, "It was thanks to Lady Leica's help." The boy also added, "Thank you, my lady." Rengiz looked at the girl and thought, the 2 of them have reached 1-star rank, but I still. Celine looked over at him, and it seemed she understood a little. Blushing, Celine said, "Rengiz, you've gotten much stronger too. You'll reach 1-star rank soon." Raymond also said, "Don't be impatient, Rengiz." Rengiz smiled and spoke. Leica walked closer to him and said, "Thank you. Defeating a tree frog all by yourself was quite impressive." The girl continued, "Besides, you trained with Jack before the exam to refine your spear skills, didn't you? Don't worry too much. You'll reach 1-star rank soon." Rengiz looked at the girl with tears in his eyes and whispered, "Lady Leica." The girl looked up at the sky and said, "All right, the sky is about to get dark. Let's return to base." Celine agreed. "That's right. Being outside at night is truly dangerous." The brilliant sunlight shone down on the rolling mountain ranges and the golden forest. The lush green canopies intertwined beneath the silent night, and many specks of light floated in the air. Rengiz held the frog in his arms, opened his eyes wide, looked ahead, and said, "Lady Leica." Raymond frowned in surprise and asked, "What are you doing at our base?" Someone slowly stepped forward and cried out softly in surprise. The whole group was shocked by that appearance. Rengiz exclaimed, "What?" Celine also spoke up. "What?" Baylor stepped out from his hiding place and said, "So you finally noticed, huh?" Leica reached out to draw her weapon and asked doubtfully, "You're from the 10-year-old class, aren't you? Did you come to steal our crystal?" The boy replied, "Exactly." Baylor thought to himself, the seniors have finally started attacking, and he's a 2-star rank. The boy said quietly, "It's only natural in this exam. Still, I didn't expect it to be Lady Leica's base." Raymond angrily said, "Then why don't you go back? You can't take us down by yourself." Baylor said in a stern voice, "Who said I'm alone right now?" Leica and her teammates were rather surprised when they heard that from the boy. The girl turned back to look at them and thought to herself, 3 2-star ranks right behind him. One of them gripped the hilt of his sword tightly and said loudly, "Even if you're Lady Leica, having to carry 3 dead weights will make things rather difficult, won't it?" "So." Baylor drew his sword and said, "Hurry up and surrender." Leica, holding her glowing sword, descended from midair to attack the boy. The girl gripped the sword tightly with both hands and shouted, "Everyone, hold out until I return." Celine was locked in battle with her opponent, neither side gaining the upper hand. On this side, Raymond was using his shield to desperately block the enemy's attacks. Rengiz was also doing everything he could to withstand his opponent's blows. A shout rang out along with the opponent's fierce attack. "Come on, hand over the crystal." Rengiz gripped his spear tightly, defending as he thought, "What should we do in this situation?" Jack looked at Rengiz in surprise and asked, "What? You're asking how to defeat a stronger opponent?" Sitting with his knees drawn up, he replied, "Yes. I still don't have any stars. So, if a powerful enemy appears, I want to know what I should do." Jack suddenly looked at Rengiz and answered, "Give up." He asked in surprise, "What?" Jack's voice rang out again, clear and direct. "Isn't it obvious? For someone with no stars, fighting a 3-star or 4-star opponent is completely impossible." Rengiz said, "No way." Jack continued, "Still, if they're 1-star or 2-star rank, you can manage somehow." The boy looked at him and spoke lightly. Jack turned to Rengiz and said, "You're worried about the upcoming exam, aren't you? If my memory is correct, most of the monsters on Poison Dragon Mountain are 2-star rank. I've heard that the seniors attacking us are also mostly 2-star rank. In that case, there's still a way." The boy asked impatiently what way. Jack raised 2 fingers and smiled. "It's nothing new. Exploit an opening. That's all." Rengiz asked in surprise, "An opening?" Jack narrowed his eyes and answered, "That's right. You can defeat a 2-star enemy. Even with no stars like you, you can turn the tables if you find their opening." The boy looked at him in shock and said, "Me?" Rengiz said, "But how do I make them reveal an opening?" Jack turned to look at the boy and replied, "Take the hits. Endure and keep enduring." He continued, "Keep taking their blows until you see your opponent's opening." Rengiz cried out in surprise, "What?" Jack said, "Why are you so surprised? You're facing an opponent stronger than you. What do you think someone weak like you can do?" The boy clenched his fists and said quietly, "That's true, but will I really be able to endure it?" Jack looked at Rengiz and said, "It's not a question of whether you can endure it. You must endure it. If you can't, then defeating a stronger enemy is nothing but a fantasy. The boy seemed to understand something and softly murmured in realization. Jack continued, that said, against a special opponent like Laika. The girl spoke up, me? You're a girl with special potential. He continued, as you are now, you can endure against a 2-star opponent. Don't worry too much. The boy remained seated there, his voice low and quiet. I think so, Jack said. Rengiz, you still lack quite a lot of confidence. He continued, believe in yourself. That's an important factor in becoming stronger, you know. The boy answered while crying, I know that, but Jack pointed at Rengiz and continued, then let me give you one more piece of advice. He continued speaking, don't overthink a single problem. Jack said, you don't need to think about finding openings or all kinds of different powers. Rengiz seemed to have grasped the point. Jack's voice remained even. Just patiently wait for your opponent to reveal an opening. Then thrust your spear into that opening. That's all. The boy asked again, thrust straight in with the spear? He pointed at Rengiz's chest and replied, exactly. Like this. The boy thought to himself, the secret to defeating a stronger enemy. Rengiz gripped his spear tightly and muttered, this guy is stubborn. The boy told himself, that's right. Right now, I'm weaker than this person. Rengiz tightened his grip on the spear in his hand and continued thinking, so I have to endure and wait, no matter what, until an opening appears. His opponent advanced toward him with sword in hand and shouted, damn it. The boy swung his sword down from above. Rengiz shouted, D. Holding his spear firmly, Rengiz opened his eyes wide and stared intently at his opponent. A brilliant blue light flared up with an extremely bright point at its center. A pure white light shot downward like an arrow, piercing through the dark night. Rengiz thrust his spear toward his opponent and shouted, there it is. The boy was struck, but he couldn't believe it was true. Impossible. Rengiz remained standing there, spear in hand, his eyes fixed on the enemy. A brilliant point of light appeared in the boy's chest. Laika shouted, looks like that side is finished. Balishuted, impossible. I'm also 2-star rank, but before the boy could finish speaking, he was forced to struggle to contain Laika's attack. Baylor continued, why is the difference this huge? The girl recalled, because I learned axe techniques, I had to put more force into my greatsword. That's why Jack previously suggested axe techniques to me. Laika spoke. It was your bad luck to target us. Baylor shouted, 7 strikes, no? The girl attacked the boy repeatedly and said, it's over, Baylor. Baylor screamed in pain. Laika hurriedly ran forward, leaving Baylor lying motionless on the ground. The girl looked around anxiously and asked, is everyone all right? Both Rengiz and Laika smiled brightly, their eyes filled with joy and relief. Everyone cheered happily, we won. Celine looked at Rengiz and said, congratulations on reaching 2-star rank, Rengiz. Raymond also said, you did it. The boy, overjoyed and tearful, said, thank you, both of you. I'm so happy. Laika looked at them and thought to herself, now everyone has reached the star ranks. They can steadily fight opponents of the same rank. The girl said softly, I wonder how Jack is doing. Deep inside the forest, it seemed as if some terrifying force was about to appear. Laika ran in panic, crying out, don't come here, don't come here. As she ran and cried, the girl angrily cursed. What is that thing? Someone's voice echoed out. What is that monster? Laika's entire group ran while shouting loudly, help, don't come near me. Someone asked in confusion, what's wrong with that guy? A curse rang out. You monster. Jack, looking pleased with himself, held trophies in both hands and laughed loudly. Jack was still smiling brightly as he said, what's wrong? Is there no one left to play with me? Rengiz shouted while running. That guy really has gone insane. Laika also said, why is an underclassman hunting upperclassmen like this? Aren't we supposed to be the hunters? Suddenly, the boy fell hard. Rengiz looked ahead and thought to himself, damn it, my leg is stuck. Jack, his eyes shining brightly, reached a hand toward the boy and said, I'm bored of this pointless game of tag. Come on, get up. Come here and fight me. The boy widened his eyes in shock and looked ahead, crying out, hey. Rengiz lay there drenched in sweat, staring forward in terror. It felt as if someone had just strangled the boy so tightly he could not breathe. Jack looked at Rengiz and shouted helplessly, oh, come on. Then he looked at the 2 people running away and shouted, seriously? Why are you all so timid and gutless? Weren't all of you so eager to fight at first? Don't leave me all alone. Jack looked around and muttered, that's right. Why don't you all observe more carefully? He stood there watching, then continued, if you're just standing there watching, then that must mean there is nothing wrong with what I'm doing, right? He exclaimed excitedly, then I'll keep playing as much as I like. Suddenly, a person's foot appeared from behind the bushes. It turned out to be his supervisor. He stammered, what is this? After observing Jack, he spoke again. He can sense my presence, even after discovering the upperclassmen. That is rather impressive. The supervisor thought for a moment, then said, I have to report this. Rengiz was still lying motionless on the ground. Frisia looked at him and ordered, You've returned. Report. The supervisor replied, Understood. Simon spoke with a stern expression. 1 week after the test began, about 30% of the 7-year-old class has been eliminated. However, the remaining students are gradually adapting. He continued, I believe this number will not decrease much from its current level. Frisia looked at Simon and said, I see. And what about the upperclassmen? The person beside her replied, The upperclassmen are... Frisia urged him. What is it? Speak clearly. The young man looked at her nervously and replied, To put it simply, they are running away. She asked in surprise, Running away? The upperclassmen? What exactly are they running from? Frisia said, There shouldn't be any monsters on Poison Dragon Mountain that would make them run away. The young man answered, It is young Master Jack. She asked in surprise, What did you just say? The young man replied, Young Master Jack is currently attacking the upperclassmen. At first, the upperclassmen tried to resist, but now all of them are fleeing. The boy asked in confusion, Just who exactly is this young Master Jack? He even started enthusiastically sending the upperclassmen off. This is truly unheard of. After a long silence, a young man standing nearby also spoke. I agree. His son, and even the clan head. No, on the contrary, I must say, he continued, that boy is an abnormal case. He has gone far beyond the concept of a genius. In truth, he is closer to a monster. Frisia said quietly, I also think he is extremely strange. He deliberately chose to act alone and set out at a leisurely pace. Could it be that from the very beginning, he was not the one being hunted, but the hunter? She murmured to herself, Is that so? Like a monster. Suddenly, a girl spoke. That sound is a voice rang out. Oh my, has it arrived already? I have been waiting for so long. The young man looked at her and said, Lady Frisia, where should I place it? She replied, Just put it there. You've worked hard. The entire group exclaimed in shock. What is that, Lady Frisia? Don't tell us you intend to release this thing onto Poison Dragon Mountain? Its power reaches 3-star rank. With the children's current strength, there is no way they can handle it. She replied cheerfully, They'll be fine. This thing has already been specially adjusted. The young man asked in surprise, Adjusted? Frisia replied, That's right. This one only attacks those who have reached 2-star rank. She continued, So ordinary children will not be greatly affected. The person beside her asked, Is that so? But why do this? Frisia looked at him and replied, This is the clan head's order. The young man exclaimed in surprise, From the clan head? She thought, Now then, let us see what he will do. He is strong enough for the veterans to call him a monster. I wonder whether he can deal with something like this. Frisia said coldly, Release it at dawn. Morning came in the dense forest. The sun began to rise above the treetops. Rengiz asked, Did the ground, Celine continued, shake just now? Leica replied, her eyes fixed ahead. It seems so. What is that? It feels strange. Raymond wondered, Is it the upperclassmen again? Rengiz said, Maybe it's a monster like a big, ferocious boar or something like that. Leica stood with her arms crossed and said, But why do I have this feeling? Everyone continued walking with unease. Something around them seemed abnormal. Everyone was still moving, and no one noticed a tree above them that was about to fall. Leica shouted, A tree is falling. Everyone get away. Raymond hurried over to protect Rengiz, and the young girl quickly shielded Celine as well. Leica looked ahead in horror, drew her sword, and said, What is that? Celine stammered, That is... Raymond also stared intently in that direction, while Rengiz stood fearfully beside him. Someone's voice rang out. A golem. Jack looked up at the sky and wondered, Is it time already? After thinking that, he sighed in boredom. Jack looked listlessly at the people fleeing and said, I'm starting to get bored. There is no one left who can fight me. How disappointing. Just then, there was movement from another part of the forest, causing birds to fly up from that direction. As if sensing it, Jack became alert. A strange presence. It has been a long time since a monster of this level appeared. Another thought occurred to Jack. Or they try to imply something by releasing it here. But with the children's current abilities, a 3-star opponent may be too much for them. The next moment, he sat down and analyzed the situation. Something like this should have been handled by the instructors before the exam began, shouldn't it? No, that is not right. Jack considered another possibility. Maybe they deliberately released it. What exactly are they trying to do? Seriously? He smiled with interest. But that makes it even better. Perhaps I will be entertained again. With that decided, Jack jumped down. I cannot just sit still like this. I am coming, you 3-star thing. If only it had appeared near me, it would have been more fun, but instead it appeared all the way over there. The scene shifted elsewhere, where Celine was fighting fiercely. The young girl unleashed a powerful kick at the golem. A moment later, Celine retreated and observed, no way. It doesn't even have a scratch. Raymond suddenly leaped onto it and angrily struck it. Take this. However, the boy was immediately bewildered. Even that didn't work. Next, Laika unleashed a lightning technique directly at the place where the golem stood. This time, a crack appeared on its body. The young girl observed carefully. It seems I can only break through its outer shell when I use true energy. That means this thing can only be defeated by someone who has reached 2-star rank. Rengiz asked uneasily, Laika, what should we do now? The young girl raised her voice. All right, everyone listen. Laika made her decision. I will distract it. While I do, all of you run. Her words made the whole group unable to believe it. What? No, we cannot leave you behind, Laika. Even so, the young girl remained resolute. I know this may sound offensive, but all of you will only drag me down. The spot I just struck on its arm only cracked a little after I used all my true energy. The golem was approaching them. Time was running out. Laika did her best to persuade them. With your current abilities, you cannot even scratch it. No way. Raymond confirmed firmly. That is true. We cannot scratch it at all. The boy was still determined not to give up, but we can still support you, so Lady Laika can land a more accurate blow. This stunned Laika. You all, Rungiz boldly joined in. I will also do everything I can. Celine agreed. That's right. If all of us fight together under your command, perhaps we really will have a chance. Their words left Laika speechless. Everyone, she unconsciously smiled helplessly. Fine, if that is how it will be, Laika enthusiastically ordered, support me. The young girl fought with all her strength. I'm going in. The next moment, Laika used the momentum from the rear to rush forward. The golem swung its giant fist toward Laika. However, Raymond used a shield to block its fist. The boy struggled to withstand that tremendous power. At the same time, Celine and Rengiz moved forward to support him. At that moment, from high above, Laika prepared to deliver a powerful blow to the golem's back. The young girl unleashed her ultimate move, Lightning Soul Heavy Sword Art. With terrifying force, the strike slammed straight into the golem like heavenly thunder. A dazzling light burst out from where they stood. Suddenly, a sound came from the aftermath of the explosion. Laika struggled to hold herself up. Rengiz hurried over and asked, Lady Laika, are you all right? The young girl smiled brightly. She said just barely, but that final blow used up all my true energy. A moment later, Laika noticed Raymond. More importantly, Raymond, are you all right? The boy replied, I am fine. In that case, the young girl ordered, everyone, let us return to the base. But before she could finish, another golem appeared behind them. Laika hurriedly pushed Rengiz away, shocking him. In his place, the young girl was seized by the golem. Laika, the young girl gritted her teeth and endured it. I'll let my guard down. It can still move. Celine exclaimed in disbelief. No way. Even after all that, it can still move? Raymond called out anxiously. Laika! Rengiz used all his strength to strike the golem. Let her go. But the next moment, it shook its arm, making Laika cry out. Rengiz was beside himself with worry. Laika! Just then, from behind, an ancient tree came flying toward them, aimed directly at their position as it hurtled down. The tree struck the golem, causing Laika to fall from its hand. Rengiz hurried over to catch the young girl. Are you all right? Laika confirmed, yes, but what exactly? Before she could ask, a familiar voice rang out. What is all this noise? The two of them froze. That voice is... As soon as they said it, Jack appeared with an excited look. Oh, what do we have here? Jack was utterly delighted. What is this earthen puppet? A short while earlier, when Jack saw the light Laika created, he thought, this situation does not look good. He observed it and realized, isn't that lightning? So Laika's group got there first. Back when I was at my peak, a distance like this was nothing to me. Jack thought to himself, Laika's group is full of promising children, but against a 3-star opponent, how long can they possibly hold out? The next moment, he targeted a tree standing tall nearby. All right, I will try the new technique I learned the other day. Jack grasped the trunk of the tree with one hand. Let's see. He lifted it up as if it weighed nothing. Jack shouted as he prepared to throw it. Then he hurled the tree straight toward Laika's location. He stood still and observed. This is pretty good. I thought this body might need skill after all. Luckily, I made the effort to learn. Jack recalled it and commented, Dragon Nurturing Art, the giant dragon basic martial arts manual, was given to the children before the exam. Like Dragon Bandit Close Combat Method, it is not exactly a martial art, but more like a guidebook on basic movements and how to circulate true energy. He nodded as if he had understood. So, it turns out it suits me perfectly. After all, in my previous life, long-range attacks. He then briefly fantasized about the long-range techniques of the first clan head from 1,000 years ago. The next moment, Jack continued running while reminding himself, well, there's no time to reminisce. I need to do something right now. Rengiz gaped. Jack waved in greeting. Is everyone all right? Rengiz hurriedly reported. Yes, but that is not the issue right now. The golem over there. Jack became even more interested. Oh, so it is called a golem. He gave his assessment. It has an aura, yet no vitality at all. What a strange life form. Meanwhile, the golem had already charged forward as the group shouted a warning. Jack, be careful. The clash between the two sides created a dazzling light. Jack had used his hand to block the golem's giant fist. Its shell is quite hard. With this level of hardness, it may be impossible to break without using a strike wrapped in true energy. But defeating it the ordinary way would be too boring, wouldn't it? The next moment, he forcefully knocked its arm away. Seeing this, Leica said helplessly, still as reckless as always. Rengiz was confused. Boring? Why is he like this? The golem did not give up and continued to swing its arm, preparing to smash down. Jack analyzed it carefully. Now then, judging by size, this thing is probably... He raised both hands and directly met its attack. The force of the collision caused the ground to sink deeply. While holding it back, Jack warned, this would be rather dangerous, so step back. Leica's group obeyed and hurriedly ran away. Yes, sir. Seeing that there was nothing left to hinder him, Jack's power gradually erupted. Now then, with a powerful heave, he sent the golem flying far away. That outer shell is tough. Jack charged forward fiercely. Then let us see whether the inside is just as sturdy. He jumped up with his fist gathering power. Let me test this. A powerful strike came crashing down. Dragon Annihilation True Form, First Form. Space seemed to shatter in an instant. Second technique, Rupturing Blast. Instead of breaking the outer shell, I will use Rupturing Blast to pour true energy inside and make it explode from within. Once it was done, Jack smiled in satisfaction. How about that? It succeeded, didn't it? Now, this is finally getting interesting. Sunlight continued to shine throughout the forest. The scene shifted elsewhere. Frisia exclaimed in shock. Clearly, the upperclassmen's test was to attack the underclassmen and steal their crystals. But you, an underclassman, went and attacked the upperclassmen instead. No one has ever done that before. She kept scolding him. Because of you, not a single one of them obtained any crystals, and all of them have to retake the test. Jack indifferently retorted, but that does not violate the rules, and I did not steal anything. This made her even angrier. Who would normally expect an underclassman to counterattack the upperclassman? Frisia turned away helplessly. In any case, that casual tone of yours must be changed when you stand before the clan head. As she finished speaking, a closed wooden door and 2 guards appeared. At that moment, Frisia sternly corrected him. In any case, you must immediately drop that careless attitude when you stand before the headmaster. Hearing that, Jack asked in confusion why. She pondered for a moment, then repeated why. Frisia spoke frankly, because you could be eliminated even if you are only a child. She emphasized with distress, I will not allow that to happen. Jack remarked sarcastically, how cruel. Frisia carefully knocked on the door and called out. Clan head. She stood upright and reported clearly. Frisia Winkick, member of the Black Dragon Guard, has arrived immediately in response to your summons. Bunga spoke coldly. Komein. She pushed the door open respectfully and entered. Excuse me. Jack indifferently turned his gaze toward the center. Then Frisia cautiously introduced him. I have come together with young Master Jack. Only then did the man raise his eyes and ask a question. What? Bunga narrowed his eyes and interrogated him. Did you attack the upperclassmen? After hearing that, Jack complained in boredom. Everyone keeps asking the same thing over and over. Then let me ask in return, was I not allowed to attack them? The man was shocked speechless. What? Jack calmly made a sharp argument. The only conditions for passing were to survive 1 month on Poison Dragon Mountain and keep one's crystal. I did not hear any other rules, so I followed them and used my time however I pleased. If there were prohibited actions, you should have stated them clearly before the start. Hearing this, Frisia lost all patience. Frisia growled and tried to stop him. Young Master Jack, you are... Just then, Bunga glared, displaying his oppressive might. A massive aura spread throughout the room. In an instant, Frisia was suppressed and dropped to one knee. The man stared at Jack and stated with certainty, "Under this pressure, you will die." However, Jack arrogantly retorted, "Do not threaten me. It is annoying." After hearing that, Bunga was stunned, his eyes widening. Without hesitation, Jack asked him directly, "So did you call me here just to ask about these trivial matters?" The man fell silent, then probed, "How exactly did you do it?" Jack raised an eyebrow provocatively. "Do what?" Bunga questioned him suspiciously. "According to the report, you not only defeated the upperclassmen, but also took down a golem. Furthermore, standing before me now, you are strangely calm." He examined him unhappily. "How does an illegitimate child like you possess such power?" Jack calmly confirmed, "The reason for my strength is very simple." Jack declared confidently, "There is no reason other than the fact that it is my talent." Hearing this, Bunga frowned and looked straight into Jack's eyes. Jack refused to back down and faced him boldly. At that moment, the man praised him with satisfaction. "Your attitude is indeed as arrogant as the rumors say. However, I will reward you for defeating the golem. Choose one, a treasure from the Dragon Treasury Pavilion, or the right to enter the Dragon Inscription Pavilion up to the second floor." After hearing that, Frisia was utterly bewildered. A reward? What was going on? She fell silent and thought it over. The Dragon Archives and the Dragon Treasury were places where rare treasures collected by generations of headmasters over more than 1,000 years, ever since the founding ancestor fast, were stored. The Dragon Archives contained all kinds of books, including volumes that were now forbidden. The Dragon Treasury preserved relics of former headmasters, legendary weapons, spiritual medicines, magical tools, and many other treasures. Rare treasures from many different eras were kept there. These facilities were originally secret treasure vaults of the El Dragon clan and were managed with extreme strictness. Only those with permission could enter. In particular, to reach the second floor or higher of the Dragon Archives, one had to have exceptionally outstanding achievements. Frisia could not believe it and turned to mock herself. After all that, even his disrespectful attitude was still judged as outstanding. Just then, Jack cut in and spoke. "If it is a reward, why not give me both? How stingy?" Bandra coldly ordered, "Enough. Withdraw." Jack pointed at him in confusion. "What? That is it? I still have plenty more I want to say." Seeing the tension in the air, Frisia hurriedly grabbed Jack by the collar. "Wait, Jack." Frisia smiled brightly and apologized. "We are deeply honored to receive a reward directly from you. As you command, clan head." "Let's go, Jack." While being dragged outside, Jack still reminded him in a low voice, "Then I will say just one more thing. As long as you keep suppressing your emotions like that, no matter how hard you try, you will never become stronger." Seeing this, the man grew slightly shaken. The clan head and Jack clashed with their auras. As Frisia scolded Jack, she forced a smile. "Please keep quiet. Lord Clan Head, we will take our leave." After they left, the man looked doubtful. What was that pressure? The scene shifted outside the great hall, where Frisia cried out angrily. "Jack!" Frisia's face went pale. "Just what were you thinking, saying those things with that attitude in front of the clan head? Did you not hear what I told you before we entered the room?" Jack shrugged and replied, "What are you talking about? I held myself back as much as I could." Frisia groaned helplessly. "You call that holding back? You can speak politely to me and to the instructors, so why not do the same with the clan head?" Jack folded his arms against the cold and said firmly, "In the end, he is still my biological father." She was left speechless. Truly, with that ability and that attitude, she had to narrow her eyes and examine him. "You are not an ordinary child. Just who are you?" Jack answered mysteriously. "You are asking who I am?" He smiled and confirmed, "I already told you. I am just me." Frisia stood frozen in doubt for a few seconds. Then, puzzled, she wondered inwardly. All of them had drunk ancient dragon blood, so they absolutely should not be able to oppose the clan head, who possessed the power of the Dragon King, a species even higher than ancient dragons. That was how it should have been. So why was this child so strangely calm in front of the clan head? At that moment, Jack spoke calmly. "Is something wrong?" She denied it and reassured herself. "No, it is nothing. I should carefully check the birth records again later. Then Frisia asked him curiously, so, which reward will you choose? You can either enter the second floor of the Dragon Archives or take one treasure from the Dragon Treasury. Jack coyly raised 2 fingers. Both. She immediately refused. No, he pouted sulkily. You cannot help me. Jack sank into thought. In that case, the scene shifted to a grand and magnificent castle. He declared loudly, knowledge it is. Jack rubbed his chin and announced, I lack far too much knowledge about this era. I'm also curious about the spiritual medicines and tools created over the past 1,000 years, but seeing this, Rengiz eagerly continued, I cannot believe I get to enter the Dragon Archives. Jack laughed and turned his head. Are you that happy? Rengiz answered cheerfully, of course. Rengiz's eyes shone as he explained, the close combat art, the Dragon Bandit method, and the Dragon Recovery method that I just learned were already amazing, but this is a chance to learn even better martial techniques. I never expected the reward for passing the test to be so extravagant. I am moved. Just then, Leica poked her head out from behind them and added, how much knowledge can we absorb within the time limit? We have to work hard. Hearing that, Jack asked in confusion, there's a time limit? The little girl smiled. That is right. We're only allowed onto the first floor, but the basic rules should be the same. Leica carefully explained the rules. You can only borrow 1 book, but you may read as many as you like within the limited time. That is why how you use your time is very important. Jack nodded as if he understood. I see. The little girl excitedly asked another question. By the way, I heard about it. Jack, you chose the Dragon Archives instead of the Dragon Treasury as your reward. Leica expressed her surprise. With your personality, I thought you would choose something from the Dragon Treasury. Jack sighed softly. I considered that too, but knowledge seems more important to me right now. The little girl asked in surprise. Knowledge, she continued. I heard the second floor has books even rarer than the first floor, especially martial arts books. They say there's a huge difference in level between the first and second floors. Leica emphasized proudly, though I do not think anything could be better than my Thunder Soul heavy sword art. Seeing Jack's attention drift, the little girl urged him, Hey Jack, are you listening? Hey! The scene shifted to the library gate. The gatekeeper announced coldly, the time you may remain inside the building is 5 hours. Use it quietly and strictly obey the time limit. Jack murmured to himself, I wonder whether that is long or short. Leica answered on her own, it may be long. The little girl skillfully instructed him. First, you have to decide which book you will borrow. After that, read other books within the allotted time. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Understand. Rengiz, standing beside him, nervously revealed his goal. They say talented people can skim through many books at once. But my goal is to find a martial arts book suited to me within that time. As soon as the group stepped inside, they all exclaimed in admiration. Honestly, even just finding the book you need here looks difficult. Celine looked around excitedly. So this is the Dragon Archives? Jack looked up in excitement. It is more impressive than I expected. He happily gazed at the dazzling ceiling. Now, then, let us see what knowledge. Jack slowly walked toward the bookshelf before him. That will interest me. At that moment, he screamed in shock. What the hell is this? Jack was so stunned that he dropped the book. Impossible. He flipped through the pages in confusion. Chaotic rifts? Magic? Ah, there's too much information I know nothing about. Jack collapsed tiredly onto the floor. 1,000 years really is a terrifying span of time. To think that, over those 1,000 years, this world. He turned over and reached for the book. It had connected to another world. Jack fell into deep thought, recalling the past. Around 900 years ago, a sudden tear appeared in the wall of space, and a rift opened on the other side. Beyond it was another chaotic world known as the Realm of Chaos. In that world, monsters called Chaos ran rampant everywhere. To fight Chaos, the humans of that world nurtured a special energy within themselves. The El Dragon clan fought alongside them against Chaos, and through bonds formed on the battlefield, for powerful warriors from that other world married into the El Dragon clan. They became the founders of the 4 great branches of the El Dragon clan that exist to this day. Jack recalled the fragments of memory in confusion. Now that I think about it, that angry roar from before was covered in a strange black mist, and like his lightning aura too. Jack mocked himself. Of course I did not know. So both came from another world. No wonder I knew nothing about them. And what made him most curious was, as soon as he turned to the next page, he quickly discovered magic, a new technology brought over from another world. Jack's eyes shone with delight. Where are the books that teach how to use it? Why is there not a single one? Normally, things like that should be placed right next to the history books. Just then, A warning voice rang out. Please remain quiet inside the building. Looking at the strange flow, Jack wondered. A voice with no aura at all. Only sound. Could this be that magic? A technique that transmits only sound. Jack raised his head and examined the space. But I cannot sense any energy aside from source power. Just then, he noticed a strange scene unfolding. Books rose into the air, leaving Jack stunned enough to shout. What is that? He looked around with fascination. Using source power like strings to move objects? That is an interesting technique. The voice continued to admonish him. Please remain quiet. However, Jack was still immersed in excitement and grabbed a book. How am I supposed to stay quiet in front of something this interesting? Come before me right now and teach me directly. The figure of the librarian, high above, lightly flicked a hand. At that motion, golden strings immediately bound Jack tightly. Then that person lifted Jack straight into the air and signaled, "It is closing time." The instant Jack tried to speak, he was flung outside. And over there too, the other students were also shocked. What was that? What was that? Jack landed safely, still excited. Another thing I do not know. He pointed and begged, "Show me that properly." Ringiz approached in confusion and asked, "Young Master Jack, what happened?" Laika also asked in puzzlement, "What did you do to get thrown out like that?" Jack forced a smile and scratched his head. "Well, I just got a little too excited. What about everyone else? Did you find anything you liked?" Ringiz quickly bragged, "Yes, I borrowed a martial arts book called Cloud Water Spear Method, and I think I learned a simple footwork technique from it." Celine smiled as she explained, "I also learned a footwork technique from this. I borrowed the martial arts book Windflower Sword Method." Reynold calmly reported, "I learned the El Dragon Style Guardian sword art from this." Another added, "The book I borrowed is also a martial art, the El Dragon Style Guardian shield art." Hearing this, Jack smiled bitterly to himself. All of those martial arts are things I created to kill time in my previous life. I see. Next, he asked seriously, "Laika, what did you choose?" The little girl proudly presented a book. This one, Heavy Wave Greatsword Art. They say it was created by the first clan head, and this is the revised Heavy Wave Greatsword Art improved by the 15th clan head. I already have my family's inherited martial art, so this is only for research. Hearing that, Jack thought with concern, the 15th clan head again. The Dragon Breath Combat Method and Dragon Strike were also created by the 15th clan head. There are many martial arts I created in the Dragon Hall, but beside many of them are improved versions placed right next to them. Without hesitation, Jack curled his lips in interest. Could those also be the work of the 15th clan head? How interesting. Jack softly began. Actually, when I first entered this place, I thought it would be boring. He looked at the library with anticipation. But now, I cannot wait to see what comes next. Time passed. 5 years later, Laika slowly moved to a certain place. She stopped and looked around anxiously. Where are Jack and everyone else? Just then, a student respectfully reported, "Miss Laika, Lord Jack, and the others have already gone to the training ground." The little girl nodded and waved her hand. Again, "Thank you." Laika Typhona L. Dragon, age 12. The scene shifted to the training yard, where the little girl calmly walked forward. Before Laika's eyes were 3 people surrounding a boy. The one standing in the center was Jack L. Dragon, age 12. Elsewhere, glittering light slipped through each window like crystals floating in the air. A finger tapped against the tabletop, accompanied by a question. "Is this the form of a special rift?" The man sitting in the chair by the window spoke. "Are you certain about this?" Someone approached from the side and answered, "Yes. According to the investigation, there is roughly an 80% chance that magic water exists inside the rift." This was the commander of the Black Dragon Legion, Henbata. He propped his chin on one hand and fell into thought. It appeared in a troublesome location. Of all places, why must the magic water be there? Those who drank that water would become mages. That was magic water. Those who drank magic water would become a special kind of being capable of converting true essence power into another type of power, mana. The new techniques released through mana would bring a revolution to the world. At the same time, fierce territorial conflicts over magic water, the springs of magic, had begun. The age of magic had arrived. The number of mages greatly determined a clan's military strength. Within El Dragon territory, there was not a single spring of magic. For clans that did not possess a spring of magic, there is only one way to obtain magic water: conquer a special rift. At present, the El Dragon clan had only a few mages, including Plaza. All of them were hardened elites who had obtained magic water by conquering special rifts. Even so, they were currently being overwhelmed by other clans that possessed springs of magic through sheer numbers. Conquering special rifts was the most important mission of the El Dragon clan. However, Hen stepped forward with a scroll in hand. As he said, this location, the bountiful dragon forest, is very troublesome. Even in the surrounding regions, a small-scale border conflict occurred just the other day. At that moment, in the bountiful dragon forest, the vast woodlands stretched far beyond their territory into the territory of another clan. A portion of it extended into the territory of another family, a family that claimed joint ownership of the forest and called it the Bountiful Hound Forest, the Severe's clan. He assessed the situation. The rift itself is certainly within El Dragon territory, but judging from its scale and location, there is a chance that the special wind-slaying territory rift will extend into Severe's territory. He pointed at the map. With those wild dogs, there's a high chance they will come sniffing around. Bandra affirmed. At the very least, those people have keen noses. Either way, they will notice soon enough. We need to prepare a force we can control in case we must confront them. Since it is a special rift, the options available to both sides will be limited. The man said softly, "We must act before they realize it." The clan head ordered, "Notify all dragon houses immediately. Tell them that a selection will be held." Hen immediately accepted the order. Understood. Elsewhere, Laika folded her arms before her chest and sneered. "You really are going all out." The corners of Jack's mouth lifted. From a distance, powerful attacks came rushing in. Countless people attacked him from every side. Their attacks surrounded him. Windflower sword art, scattering blossoms, El Dragon style guardian shield art, stone wall fist, cloudwater spear art, water pierce. Jack's eyes shone brightly, burning with killing intent. He raised his arm to block the attack beside him. Looking at the spear tip stabbing in his cheek, Jack chuckled. That was a good strike. However, Jack looked toward Rengiz and judged. "Rengiz, you are putting too much force into that. If you do that, you are killing the strengths of spear techniques." Rengiz, age 12. He pointed toward Celine. "Celine, you're focusing too much on data and speed, so your balance is off. Learn how to judge balance properly." Celine, age 12. Jack praised Reynold. "Reynold, you're doing fairly well." Reynold, age 12. Jack brushed away the spear beside him and called out, "But your passivity still has not changed. You should get used to attacking more." "Now, one more time." Everyone answered in unison, "Yes." Like his voice rang out as usual. "This really is an insane sight." Jack asked in confusion. "Insane?" The little girl put her hands on her hips and judged, blocking attacks head-on without using true essence power. "How is that not insane?" While dodging Reynolds' attack, Jack said loudly, "Nonsense. This is proper training too." Jack clenched his fist and raised it excitedly. "Look, this is the result of that training. Even without using true essence power, my body has become this tough." Laika was helpless. "Miss Laika, look at this." "Lord, is Jack not far too strange?" Jack remained firm. "At the very least, you cannot tell them to stop attacking while we are talking. I think the way you keep attacking regardless of the other person is strange too." Reynolds charged forward. Defending like this without true essence power, Celine judged, "For a human body to be like this is too mysterious." Laika asserted, "Jack is not human, so do not lump him together with us." "Do you know what the upperclassmen call Jack?" "The monster child of the East District." Hearing the little girl say that, Jack looked somewhat displeased. "Is that not a little rude to me?" he asked. "So, did you come here for something, or did you come to join the training?" The little girl replied, "Training is fine, but first I have something to say." Hearing that, Jack turned to her curiously. Laika grew serious. "It seems you will meet the children from the other dragon houses, and probably soon." Rengiz could not help being confused. "What?" Reynolds stammered. "I guess this day would come, but it is finally here." Celine asked in confusion, "Is it the next test?" The little girl answered calmly, "Who knows? Even I do not know that much." Jack asked curiously, "How do you know about that?" Laika judged. "You can tell just by watching the trainers, from their conversations and actions." Jack thought back to that time. "I never paid attention to things like that." The little girl snorted softly. "You really are a carefree candidate for heir." Laika reminded him, "In any case, be careful. There is someone in the West District, another candidate for the position of next clan head besides us. Jack sneered. Then that sounds interesting. I look forward to it. Time shifted to a few days later. In the courtyard, whispers and murmurs rang out. Everyone was there. Jack looked around. They gathered everyone, regardless of class. Like a judged, it is probably about what we discussed earlier. Suddenly, the door inside slowly opened. Frisia stepped out. Everyone is gathered, correct? All of you shut your mouths. Hearing that, everyone immediately fell silent. The space sank into an eerie stillness. She began the explanation. Good. Starting today, for the next 3 days, everyone, listen carefully. You will be fighting children from the other dragon nests. Freza reached out and announced, in 3 days, you will fight children from the other dragon nests. Everyone began whispering among themselves. Fighting the kids from other districts? Doesn't that usually only happen during the graduation exam, right? Why so suddenly? Instructor, please explain. There are many reasons I cannot explain in detail yet, but let me tell you one thing. The winners of this tournament will be assigned a special mission. When Jack heard that, his eyes lit up as if he had found treasure. He was secretly delighted. A special mission that requires us to fight like this. Freza continued. The matches will be a single elimination tournament, with 7 representatives chosen from each of the East, West, North, and South districts. You must decide on your representatives before the end of today. Is that clear? Someone stepped forward and asked, those 7 will be chosen from among the upper year students, right? She answered calmly, why do you think I gathered everyone here? They will be chosen from all years. Hearing that, everyone looked somewhat displeased. What? Even if she says that, what can the younger kids contribute? The younger children endured the mockery. Aside from us, no one else can fight. They're just trash. Freza waved her handkerchief. Do as you like, as long as the decision is made before the end of today. A moment later, someone stood up and shouted loudly, listen up, brats. The 7 representatives will be chosen from us, your seniors. Obviously, no one has any objections, right? It was Senior Rick. Laika struck her hand against her chest and said loudly, actually, I do have an objection. It isn't fair to call only the seniors. Shouldn't representatives also be chosen from the lower years? I'm qualified for this too. He smiled wickedly. If it isn't Lady Laika. Rick shrugged. It seems you are misunderstanding something. We are talking about true strength here. No, you are the one misunderstanding. We are discussing ability. Just then, a powerful aura flared up around the girl's legs. Laika's gaze sharpened. Strength, is it? Rick's group cried out in shock. 3-star rank. That's impossible. The rumor said she was at most 2-star rank. Since when? The girl smiled faintly. I agree that we should choose based on strength. So, Laika walked forward, folded her arms, and shouted, are there truly more than 7 seniors stronger than me? Answer me. If there aren't, then you should choose from the lower years as well. He stammered. That is because Lady Laika is an exception. Rick reached out and smiled awkwardly. The others could never compare to the seniors. Then Jack's voice rang out. Wait, you people are too noisy. Rick angrily pointed at him and shouted, you bastard. What did you just say? Jack repeated, I said you people are noisy. Rick's temper boiled over. This brat, Jack said calmly. I'm talking about you seniors who keep shouting. It sounds like you think the lower year students are trash, right? In that case, why don't all of us? Jack smiled with an extremely eerie grin. Fight until only 7 people are left standing. Jack, Laika called out. The girl pressed a hand to her face helplessly. That would cause a whole pile of problems. It's too violent. Anyway, what I mean is, the girl voiced her opinion. How about holding a preliminary round for anyone who wants to participate? Anyone who wants to join the match 3 days from now, regardless of year, can enter. What do you seniors think? If you're confident in your strength, there should be no problem, right? Rick agreed. Fine. Though I think it will be a complete waste of time. Laika turned back. All right then. Jack, you'll participate in the preliminaries too, right? Jack immediately agreed without hesitation. Of course. Also, he turned to the 3 people beside him. Rengiz, Raymond, Celine. You 3 should participate too. Rengiz stammered, pointing at himself in confusion. Us? You want us to fight the seniors? Jack replied, exactly. He asked, you have been training with me all this time, haven't you? If you don't show the results now, then what was all that training for? Celine was so overwhelmed that she stuttered. The pressure is too overwhelming. Raymond chuckled softly. All we can do is try our best. Laika added, that group, as usual. Then, with those 3 included, does anyone else want to test their strength? Whispering broke out. Even so, our opponents are seniors. There's no chance of winning. I mean, some of the seniors are at least 3-star rank. Hearing that, Jack sighed in dissatisfaction. Good grief. At least have a little spirit. People gain the most when they fight someone stronger than themselves. Well, whatever for now. He folded his arms and cast his gaze toward Rick's group, saying mockingly, "Let's see what they have then." This strength those seniors boast about. A young man, carrying a sword across his shoulder, grumbled, "Selfish brats really are a nuisance. No matter how hard they try, they have no chance of winning." Behind him, giggles rang out. "Hey, go easy on them. Other than Lady Laika, they're just a bunch of 2-star brats." Seeing his team acting timid, Jack asked, "What's wrong?" "You look worried, Rengiz." Rengiz stammered, "Well, I mean, they're up against top-ranked third-year seniors, and they're 3-star ranked too." Jack reassured him, "You've been training non-stop with your teacher for 5 years, haven't you?" Jack praised them. "Everyone has done very well. Believe in yourselves a little more." Hearing that, the 3 of them suppressed their fear and agreed. "Yes." The young man charged forward and shouted, "Hey, stop this farce already. Top students don't have that much free time. Come on, I'll teach you brats your place." The people watching from above looked down in confusion. What on earth is going on? I don't know, but very soon, all of them were beaten down by Jack's group, leaving everyone stunned. Could the top students of this class really be that weak? No, it's the other group that's unbelievable. Jack smiled with pleasure. "Good, excellent, everyone." Jack recalled each attack from earlier. Rengiz had become much sharper at parrying blows and spotting openings. Celine, meanwhile, had made excellent use of the consecutive strike technique from the Windflower sword art. Raymond's tactics had also improved greatly. He shifted smoothly between shield techniques and sword techniques. Jack observed that all of them had shown excellent results from their training. If they continued building confidence through real combat, they would improve even more. And Jack judged that Laika had grown stronger as well. Everyone was shocked. "This can't be Laika." Laika rested her sword on her shoulder and looked down at the girl collapsed at her feet. "I suppose this is enough." Rick could not help being horrified at the sight. "No way. There's no way. There's no way we 3-stars could lose to you 2-stars. A sharp voice rang out. "How naive. Even after seeing results like this, you're still spouting such nonsense." He flinched. "Huh?" Jack walked over. "Age, numbers, rank." Jack placed a finger over his mouth and said quietly, "They are nothing more than indicators. Strength in battle is decided only by the one who wins. If you are weak, you lose. That is all." Rick pointed at him and shouted, "Are you stupid? Star rank is strength. Don't tell me a brat like you doesn't even know that." Jack looked puzzled, but whether someone has stars or not. Jack pointed at himself, his voice turning cold. "If their heart is destroyed, anyone will die." Rick's expression froze when he heard Jack say that. Do not turn your eyes away from the true nature of strength. Strength in battle is nothing more than whether or not you can win. Rick, furious, pointed at him and declared, "Shut up. Where are you anyway? I'm a top student. Don't think the sophistry of a brat like you will work on me. I was going easy on you because you're still children, but if you cry later, don't blame me. I won't forgive you." Jack replied calmly, "I'm tired of this verbal sparring. Children should move their hands and feet before moving their mouths. Now only you and I are left. Show me what kind of martial arts you have mastered." He smiled with excitement as energy blazed around him. "And show me how far you have trained them." Rick clenched his teeth. "Take this." Just like that, he sprang up. "Don't look down on me." Great power fist. Before he could do anything, Jack punched him straight in the face. Rick's whole body was knocked backward. Jack praised him with interest. "You've trained fairly well." Rick slowly braced himself on his hands and sat up. Laika spoke up. "You dare say that after knocking him down without even bothering to see the result?" At the same time, on the West Wing training ground, the young men lying sprawled on the ground cried out in pain. "It hurts so much." A glowing knife lit up along with a sigh. A young man, standing with one foot propped up, sneered. "Every single one of them is useless." This was one of the candidates for the position of next clan head, Venian Eldragon. Someone approached from behind and called out, "Lord Venian, the selection list here has been completed." This was Venian's trusted assistant, Ellen. "And this is Riton." Venian turned back. "You are a junior, yet you have reached 3-star rank." A young man answered loudly, Yes, sir. Venian seemed pleased. Good. I like capable people. If you prove useful, I will take you in as my subordinate. The boy bowed his head. Thank you very much, my lord. Inwardly, he rejoiced. Lord Venian has acknowledged me. As long as Lord Venian is here, the West Wing will not lose. And by earning merit in that honorable special mission, Lord Venian will become the next clan head. And when that happens, I will become a direct subordinate of the clan head. Ellen stepped forward. Lord Venian, there is something I should report to you. Venian pressed the tip of his knife against his chin and looked up. What is it? She lowered her head close to him and whispered, It seems Lady Laika will be joining the East Wing's selected team. His expression instantly became displeased. That nosy brat is always getting in the way. Venian stood up. But no matter how much of a genius she may be, we will be the ones to win. He declared, We will pass the special mission with ease. Venian flicked the knife open like a fan. I will show my brothers that the seat of the next clan head. He smiled triumphantly. That belongs to me. At the plaza, a huge crowd had gathered. Everyone sat neatly on the benches one after another. Rengiz entered with a somewhat tense mood. There are so many people. Laika, with one hand on her hip, briefly explained the reason. Every hall gathers a large crowd like this, though some kids were eliminated in the exam. The girl raised her face, observed carefully, and remarked, Even so, the number has gone down quite a bit. He looked at them intently and realized, That's right. The people who were eliminated aren't here anymore. They're called false dragons, just like father. Then Laika slapped him hard on the shoulder from behind and reminded him, Forget about that. We were chosen as representatives of the East Hall. You should be proud. Rengiz was startled by the sudden action and turned to her, stammering, Yes, I'll do my best. After that, the girl turned to someone else and asked about the situation. Lord Jack, is something wrong? Jack folded his arms, his eyes showing indifference. Nothing. Laika was puzzled by his strange attitude. It's rare to see you so quiet. Jack kept his arms folded and looked forward, explaining the reason. I am assessing the combat strength of the students here. Suddenly, a voice rang out in admiration. As expected of Lord Jack, I never thought you could do something like that. Jack turned his face to one side and clicked his tongue in acknowledgement. Everything really has changed. From far away, two people were running toward them at high speed. Report, members of the upper year selection team from East Hall. We are members of the upper year selection team from East Hall. Rick shouted loudly and declared with certainty, I know, after that battle, we changed our way of thinking. He raised his face, placed a hand before his chest, and declared, Although I too am part of El Dragon, I sincerely respect the strong. After hearing that, Jack broke out in a cold sweat but still maintained the peace. I see. That isn't a bad thing, so it's fine. Rengiz, however, was frightened and knelt down, clinging to Jack's leg. You scared me. Then Jack continued folding his arms and stood still, observing. In any case, returning to the main point, aside from East Hall, everyone is 3-star rank. As expected, there is no 4-star. But Jack glanced in another direction. He shifted his observation toward people like Adis, those who had half a foot in the next level and felt extremely eager and excited. There are quite a few of them. Now, let's see what kinds of secret techniques I will get to witness this time. Over there, Rengiz and Laika were still standing and talking to each other. Suddenly, Sandy ran over from afar and threw her arms around the girl. Laika. The girl was startled by the sudden action. Big sister Sandy. Hearing the commotion, Rick also turned to look. She hugged Laika to her chest and asked about her situation. It's been so long. Have you been well lately? No one has been bullying you, have they? The girl, somewhat embarrassed, tried to pull away and assured her, I'm fine. I'm doing really well. Behind her, Celine looked a little awkward and asked, Lady Laika, who is this? The girl quickly turned back and introduced her. This is my cousin, Sandy Typhona. Laika's cousin, with long, glossy blonde hair and beautiful green eyes, was the daughter of the head of the Typhona family, Sandy Typhona. After hearing that name, Raymond was stunned. Typhona. In other words, one of the 4 great families. Rengiz, standing beside him, also gaped in shock. Oh my God. Just then, Sandy reached a hand forward and asked, Laika, who are these children? The girl scratched her cheek, looked up, and introduced them. They're my teammates. My friends. Sandy frowned, her attitude becoming strangely suspicious. Friends, really? It is good that you get along, but... Sandy spoke with biting cruelty. Aren't they unqualified to be companions of a candidate for the next family head? Jack, standing behind them, declared confidently, "You'll know once you fight them." Sandy's attention was drawn to him, and she carefully examined him. Laika quickly raised a hand and introduced him. "This is Jack. He is also a candidate like me." As soon as she heard the name, Sandy quickly realized Jack's true identity. "A candidate? Don't tell me. You are that rumored illegitimate child." With one hand on her hip, she spoke in a voice full of contempt. "I never expected an illegitimate child like you to still be alive." Hearing that, Laika immediately protested and questioned her. "Wait, sister, why would you say something like that?" Sandy turned back, not realizing her fault at all, and even asked in return, "Good grief. Even if he is an illegitimate child, he is still your opponent, isn't he? With that attitude, you won't be able to defeat the other candidates for family head. And you even call him your friend?" Sandy continued, turning back to mock the girl's friends. "Besides, none of those children has reached 3-star rank. Is East Hall's quality really that terrible? What defective products?" Though Jack was not enraged, he still reminded her, "If you keep looking down on them like that, be careful. They may turn the tables and make you fall flat on your back." Unfortunately, those words angered Sandy. "What did you just say? You are only an illegitimate child with no backing besides the clan head's bloodline." She raised one finger with an unpleasant attitude. "Are you really trying to advise me?" Yet, Jack showed an expression that seemed to say he was staring straight through her and emphasized it was only a warning. That successfully provoked Sandy. "You." Suddenly, Adis appeared and raised a hand to stop her. "Come now, don't cause trouble for the other teams." Ringis's eyes widened in surprise as he quickly recognized the person. Sandy frowned and stepped closer, warning him, "Hey, Adis, don't interfere, all right? We are having an important conversation." But he smiled and informed them of the situation. "I cannot ignore it. The selection battle is about to begin." In the stands, everyone had already taken their seats and was chatting lively. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the very center. Then a loud voice rang out with a command. "Attention!" The space became silent and solemn, and all the students turned their eyes toward the spectator seats. Tech's voice gradually softened after that. "All right," he emphasized each word. From this moment on, everyone's faces were filled with excitement and anticipation. Finally, Tech declared powerfully, "The selection battle will begin." The instructor loudly announced the important information. "The selection battle begins now." After that, Tech began explaining the rules. This competition will be an elimination tournament between the 4 halls. First, the 4 halls will be divided into 2 brackets. The winner of each bracket will face off in the finals. The combat format will be one-on-one duels. Each hall will send out 1 person at a time in the predetermined order from among its 7 participants. He warned the contestants, the hall that defeats 4 opponents first will be declared the winner. Once a match has begun, the team order may not be changed. Tech frankly reminded everyone, consider the order of appearance part of your strategy. And one final point, he further instructed them on the most important matter. Those chosen in this battle will be assigned a special mission. At that moment, a smile appeared on Jack's lips. He had previously been warned with extreme care that this special mission was exceptionally important to the El Dragon clan. Whoever undertook this mission would make a tremendous contribution to the El Dragon clan. And everyone understood what that meant. Contributing to the El Dragon clan meant taking a major step toward becoming clan head. After explaining the rules, Tech announced the procedure. Now we will decide the matchups. The representative of each hall will come forward in order and draw a stone from this box. Then he began calling out loudly, "Representative of West Hall, Venian." Venian quickly stepped forward and walked toward the box. He drew a stone from inside the box. Seeing that, Tech immediately gave an instruction. "All right, you may return." But Laika suddenly changed her attitude and focused on him. Venian turned back, the corner of his mouth curling into a mysterious smile. Seeing her reaction, Jack turned to her in confusion. "What is it? Do you know him?" The girl's expression grew serious as she warned him. "He's the successor candidate of the West Hall that I told you about." Laika nervously emphasized his name. Jack raised a hand to his chin and smiled in acknowledgement. "It's not just Venian. Overall, the West Hall had a lot of strong warriors." He carefully looked around and assessed the situation. The other halls were training very well too, but anyone could probably sense the difference in strength. Jack's gaze settled on Reynolds. "Still, he's a face I haven't seen in a long time." He nodded repeatedly, readily acknowledging his opponent's ability. Back during the entrance exam, he had some skill too, but I never expected him to reach 3-star rank at that age. Strong. Good. Looks like he's trained hard. Impressive, impressive. From the crowd, Reynolds suddenly turned around. His face twisted, and he ground his teeth in anger. Why is he— Suddenly, the stands grew noisy. Hey, look, isn't that Rengiz? Why is that dropout standing over there? Raymond grew worried and turned to ask Rengiz how he was doing. Rengiz, are you all right? He remained calm and confirmed firmly, I'm fine. Just then, Tech also called out the next name. Next, the representative of the North Hall. Edge Eyes had already been waiting for some time. It's our turn. After seeing him go up and draw a stone, Tech continued calling. Next, the representative of the South Hall. While she was drawing a stone, Tech called the last one as well. Finally, the representative of the East Hall. Leica immediately reached out and turned to remind him, Hey Jack, they're calling you. Jack was still dazed and pointed at himself. Me? The girl looked exasperated and emphasized it as though it were obvious. Of course, you're the strongest one, Jack. But he seemed rather reluctant, refusing awkwardly as he stammered. For events like this, shouldn't we leave it to the younger ones? In the end, Leica had to urge him on. What? We're the same age. Hurry up already. But when Sandy saw Jack, she raised a finger angrily and questioned them. Wait, why is that illegitimate child going in Leica's place? The girl turned and explained calmly, because he's the strongest among us. Sandy was still dissatisfied and looked at him with disdain. Are you joking? He isn't even 3-star. Sandy kept approaching with an arrogant attitude as she lectured her. This is also a battle for the right of succession between me and Venian, you know, in this situation. But Leica smiled confidently and reassured her, It's fine, sister. The girl's brows furrowed as she declared firmly, We're really strong. After everyone had taken their stones, Tech instructed them, Now, representatives of each hall, channel your true power into the stones you just drew. Jack raised his stone and began following along. Everyone holding a stone likewise poured power into them, causing them to change color. The stone in his hand quickly lit up ocean blue. Tech explained the purpose of this act. This will decide the match brackets. The first match will be East Hall against North Hall. Then he divided the combat pairs, and West Hall will face South Hall. Their gazes immediately gathered in one direction. In the North Hall, a burly man with a hooked nose and earrings looked toward them with shining eyes. Rengiz paled in fright. Maddie, that person is a student too? Leica could only smile helplessly. Well, yes, but— The girl glanced over, feeling a little worried. I can't believe we have to face Sister Sandy in the very first round. In contrast, Sandy made her confidence plain. Leica, this is a good chance to make you come to your senses. Sandy pointed forward and declared forcefully, I'll crush you thoroughly, and then you'll remember your position and your purpose. The girl showed no fear at all and confidently declared war. Come at me. Meanwhile, on this side, Edge Eyes greeted them in a friendly manner. Hello. Looks like we'll be fighting you in the first match. Seeing that attitude, Jack was also pleased and politely replied, I'm really looking forward to it. Let's have a proper match. He put a hand on his hip and smiled with interest. Looks like we'll get along. I'm really looking forward to this match too. Venian sat waiting with his weapon in hand. On this side, she was also quietly observing. After a while, Tech shouted the announcement. The first match, East Hall versus North Hall. Edge Eyes, leading the hall, gripped the sword on his back. Across from him, Jack curved his mouth into a smile, ready. Rick clenched his fists, made up his mind, and declared, Lord Jack, I will definitely win. Seeing that attitude, Leica felt somewhat worried. Will Rick be all right? He looks really tense. At that moment, Tech turned to carefully check both sides. Are both sides ready? Then, they had already sent their fighters into position. Tech swung his hand downward with a command, Begin! Rick unleashed a powerful punch with a shout full of inner strength. Jack folded his arms and carefully watched the battle. Now, let's see how this turns out. Leica glanced over and asked, Judging from that look, you think this will be tough, right? But he answered straightforwardly, In battle, there's no such thing as a guarantee. Then he suddenly raised a hand and corrected himself. Except for me, of course. My victory is absolute. The girl stared blankly at his action and reminded him, I wasn't talking about you. After that, Rick quickly lifted his head again. Anyway, after watching for a while, Jack could give his assessment. In terms of pure combat skill, the North Hall fighter isn't much different from Rick. So as long as he fights normally, he should be able to win. Leica was also watching, still worried inside. Normally, yes, but this is the first time we've fought in front of this many people, and there's the pressure of representing the whole team too. On the platform, Rick began growing tense and ran into trouble. Below, Jack started smiling confidently. That's true, but for them. He looked toward the two leaders and affirmed, "Those two are probably exceptions." Hearing that, Laika also grew tense. Sister Sandy and those two have nearly reached 4-star rank. Jack raises eyebrows. Then I can guarantee they won't be shaken that easily. Sandy, like his cousin, probably uses techniques from the same bloodline, right? It'll be good experience for Laika too. After a while of fighting, Rick collapsed. Tech immediately announced, "That's it. North Hall wins the first match." Seeing the situation, Marin jumped in alarm and grew anxious. I have to win. I have to win." Laika, behind her, had to calm her down. "Don't get too tense. You'll be fine." But after a while, Tech still announced the same result. Second match, North Hall wins. Rick's whole body trembled as he lowered his head apologetically. "Lord Jack, I'm sorry. But Jack remained calm and burst out laughing teasingly. "You were completely overwhelmed by the atmosphere of the arena, weren't you?" Rick could only confirm yes. Marin began crying and muttered guiltily in a tiny voice, "I'm sorry." But Jack did not blame them and instead comforted them. "It's all right. If this were a real battlefield where your lives were on the line, it would be different." He spread both hands and emphasized the true purpose. "But this is a place to learn by testing your strength. It isn't a place to kill each other." Then Jack put a hand on his hip and reminded them, "Lessons like today's are something you can only experience safely here. This defeat will become nourishment for you on real battlefields in the future. Polish your skills." The two immediately perked up and shouted together, "Yes, sir." Then he changed the subject, turned around, and asked with a smile, "Still, we've lost 2 matches in a row, right? That means the next match will be very important, doesn't it, Rengiz?" Rengiz immediately became tense. "Please don't make me any more nervous. I've been worried sick since this morning." Rengiz was covered in sweat, his eyes glancing slightly to one side. And worst of all, James. James appeared with a frightening look and a giant sword. His eyes were opened terrifyingly wide. Rengiz. Unable to stay calm, Rengiz hugged Jack and sobbed. "My opponent is that terrifying upperclassman. I'm scared to death." Jack was surprised and confused. "You fought upperclassmen before, back when we formed the team, right?" Rengiz cried out in fear and stressed. "No one in the East Hall is as scary as that." Rengiz kept complaining wearily. Fighting such a scary opponent in front of a terrifying crowd like this. Jack could only pat his head and comfort him. Good grief. Suddenly, he put an arm around Rengis' shoulders, pointed, and asked, "Rengiz, look at your opponent. What weapon is he using?" Rengiz focused and observed. "Let's see. A sword, probably." Then Jack smiled and reminded him of a simple rule. "Exactly. You're fighting someone holding a sword. Don't think about anything else." He leaned closer and gently reminded him of the principles. If he thrusts, parry. If he slashes upward, retreat. If he chops downward, step in and stab. Jack tilted his head, showing clear trust. "Just focus on dealing with the weapon right in front of you, like always." Rengis' eyes opened wide and shone brightly. "Like always." Afterward, Jack observed him and had to acknowledge Rengis' focus. His ability to concentrate really is impressive. But right now, he still needs a little guidance to steady his mind. Once he can naturally enter that state, he'll go even further. Then Jack watched intently, full of anticipation. I wonder how much this match will help him improve. Up in the stands, several people began looking down on him. Look at the difference in build. How is that skinny kid supposed to compete? Rengiz furrowed his brows and focused everything on the match. Then Tech quickly gave the command. "Begin." At the very start of the battle, James struck first. 3-leaf swordsmanship, fastest blade. By then, Rengiz had regained his calm and focused. Then he quickly leaped away, dodging James's sword strike. James, extremely eager for battle, declared bluntly, "Don't think you can escape." 3-leaf swordsmanship. At that moment, Rengiz also began counterattacking. Twin Fong branch. Seeing this, Lyca's mouth fell open in surprise. Rengiz. Celine quickly realized the opponent's intention as well. His opponent is closing in to cut off Rengis' preferred range. Raymond grew tense and turned to ask, "Lord Jack, will Rengiz be all right?" But Jack confidently pointed forward and instructed, "Don't worry. Look at Rengis' eyes." Jack clearly emphasized Rengis' current state. He's more focused. Rengiz lowered his body deeply to avoid the attack. Jack could state it with certainty, more confidently than ever. James won't be able to attack him. The more he failed to hit his opponent, the more battle-crazed James became, unleashing many consecutive strikes. 3-leaf swordsmanship, storm of leaves dance. Then Rengis' eyes suddenly shone brightly. Cloudwater spear art. Ringiz began using the technique smoothly. Flowing clouds, running water. James was now extremely surprised. What? Ringiz continued swinging his arms powerfully, dancing with his spear. Cloudwater spear art. Then Ringiz thrust his spear forward with force. Raging torrent. James fell to the ground, foaming at the mouth in pain. After that, Tech quickly announced, "The match is over." Then he declared the battle result. Third match, East Hall wins. Only after hearing that did Ringiz sigh in relief. Thank goodness. He broke into a bright, toothy smile of excitement. In that case, Ringiz completely changed his attitude and declared powerfully, "Let's start the comeback." From that battle onward, they opened up a string of victories. Starting with his win, the East Wing continued its winning streak. Tech also announced the results. Round 4 goes to the East Wing. If they kept up this favorable situation, they would achieve a good result. Round 5 goes to the East Wing. With just one more win, the East Wing would take victory. And then it began. At last, it was Leica's turn to step onto the stage, looking extremely confident. Round 6. It's been a long time since we crossed swords like this. North Wing, 20 wins, 30 losses. The girl had been waiting for her opponent from the start. East Wing, 30 wins, 20 losses. Sister Sandy. They faced each other with the same technique, Thunder Strike. Sandy stood with one hand on her hip and still declared arrogantly, "You shouldn't even have been able to reach our level." I didn't expect the elites of my North Wing to lose. Leica still did not hesitate to state her strength clearly. "I told you already, we're really strong." Then, Sandy had to admit one thing. "I see. I admit I underestimated your teammates." After that, Sandy did not hesitate to show off her ability. "But that isn't the real issue here, Leica," she declared with immense force. "Comrades are secondary. To become a leader, you yourself must possess overwhelming power." Sandy pointed forward and questioned her fiercely. "And yet you're only the second seat of the East Hall? Do you truly understand how dangerous that position is?" Leica did not deny the truth. "Of course I understand." But behind her, Jack also gave a nod as a signal. The girl raised her sword and declared bluntly, "I still haven't given up on becoming the leader." Then Leica pointed her sword forward in challenge. "Even if I have to face you, watch me. Now I can beat you." Hearing that, Sandy quickly furrowed her brow. "I see." Then she vanished from her original position. The spectators above pointed in utter astonishment. She disappeared. Sandy suddenly appeared behind Leica and demanded, "Then show me. Use everything you have." The two of them immediately clashed head-on. Suddenly, Leica dropped to one knee on the ground. Sandy swung her sword abruptly, putting Leica in difficulty. From afar, Edgeyes was observing the situation intently. As expected, Sandy has the upper hand. "I wonder how long Leica can hold out against an opponent who has mastered it." He scratched his face, greatly looking forward to the final result. The same technique, but she's even more skilled. Sandy's eyes shone. Sandy pointed her sword forward. Great sword art, Thunder Strike, Thunder Needle. The girl could not withstand it and fell backward in pain. Seeing this from afar, everyone's faces turned pale. "Leica." The girl struggled to steady herself on the ground. Then Leica reassured herself. "It's fine. The wound isn't deep. I need to get my breathing back." Seeing that, Ringiz broke out in a worried sweat. "She's too strong. I can't believe Leica was driven this far in an instant." Beside him, Raymond folded his arms tensely and recounted, "I heard Miss Sandy personally taught Leica when they were little." The girl stood up, gritted her teeth, and tried to charge forward. Sandy easily defended and calmly commented, "It seems you still haven't fixed that habit of recklessly swinging your sword whenever you're backed into a corner." Leica still did not give up, her eyes growing determined. Flash of lightning. Sandy turned as well, preparing herself to respond. Scattered thunder. The two streams of lightning power collided and exploded in the middle of the battlefield. After that, Leica was knocked backward in pain. Sandy's eyes shone as she declared arrogantly, "It's useless." She stood above her and looked down in disgust. "Your bad habits haven't improved at all. You couldn't even claim the #1 spot in the East Wing. If you had come to the North Wing back then." Leica was disheveled all over, but the girl still struggled to stand. "I would never have let you become like this. I'm not finished yet." Sandy no longer had enough patience and ordered, "Give up. At that level, you cannot beat me." Honestly, if it was going to turn out like this, I should have asked Father from the very beginning. She did not hesitate to admit what she was thinking, and forcibly brought you to the North Wing. Suddenly, the tip of Leica's sword moved slightly. The girl pointed her sword forward with a determined attitude. Seeing that, Sandy could only helplessly accept it. "You really are stubborn. Fine. In that case, Laika's eyes glanced to one side. Sandy attacked with terrifying speed. Use this chance to reflect on yourself. Laika also tried to make use of her opportunity, but Sandy did not hesitate to unleash a kick. The girl was sent flying backward in pain. Laika was struck again and again by attacks flying straight at her. After a while, the girl still could not defend herself. From above, Sandy charged downward with her sword. Celine raised a hand to cover her mouth, her eyes wide and her mouth agape. Beside Rengiz, Raymond was utterly terrified. Lord Jack, Laika is... But Jack folded his arms and smiled, declaring confidently, looks like she's about to break through another layer of her shell. Sandy shouted an order with an extremely angry expression. Just give up already. Great sword art, thunder strike. Laika raised her sword forward, preparing to defend. Then Sandy swung her sword hard down toward the ground. Second secret technique, even lit thunder. Everyone in the stands waited nervously. Is the match over? At that moment, only Sandy remained standing and watching. But Laika's voice suddenly rang out behind her. I see. So this is... The girl grinned, despite the wounds covering her body. Sister Sandy's great sword art, thunder strike. Seeing that, Sandy was utterly astonished and confused. Ow! That should have been the finishing blow. Laika turned to look behind her and emphasized, that's right. If it were the old me, it would have ended there. But for the past 5 years... Jack also answered his teammate with a smile. The girl placed a hand on her chest and declared, I've been training too. The real battle starts now. Before the match, Jack spoke up and asked, what's wrong? You're not acting like yourself today. Are you nervous, Laika? Laika closed her eyes and replied, of course I am. My opponent is my older sister, after all. The girl then opened up. Lady Sandy was the one who taught me the foundations of the lightning strike greatsword art. I learned the basics from my maternal uncle, the current head of the Typhona family, but Lady Sandy was always the one who explained the things I didn't understand. Images from the past kept circling through Laika's mind, along with that heartfelt explanation. In other words, Sandy was like a teacher to her. Hearing that, Jack raised a hand to his chin, seeming to think about something, then said, I see. Laika, still carrying that anxiety, blurted out, that's why I've never beaten her even once in the last 5 years. I'm sure I've become much stronger through training, but... The girl remained worried as she said, Lady Sandy has improved too. I talked big earlier, but honestly, I don't know if I can beat her. Hearing that, Jack suddenly clapped his hands, making a sharp sound to draw her attention, then said, I see. In that case, he gently placed an arm around Laika's shoulders and encouraged her, think back to your training with me. The girl could only stare wide-eyed at every word Jack said. Remember every day of training over these past 5 years, Laika. Images of Laika's training immediately returned to her mind. Jack's punches also appeared vividly. His terrifying blows had left an especially deep impression on Laika. The girl grew furious, while Jack's concerned voice asked, was it really that unpleasant? Seeing Laika's expression, he deliberately teased her further. Your bad habit is that whenever you get emotional, your field of vision narrows. Jack bluntly pointed out the girl's weakness. That's why, for the past 5 years, you've had to train to stay calm during battle. Laika reluctantly accepted it. I have to admit, you never held back at all. Jack's heaven-sent punch from before was something the girl would never forget. Jack winked playfully and said, that's part of my charm. That only irritated Laika even more. What charm? Jack pointed and said, in any case, the results of that training are showing clearly now. You should be able to observe your opponent quite calmly during combat. Laika agreed. That's true, but I'm not sure how much that will help when I have to fight my sister. He gently encouraged her, raising the girl's spirits. Once you enter the match, you'll understand for yourself. For someone as talented as you, once you can see your opponent's movements. Jack placed his full faith in Laika and declared, everything will change. Besides, you're being taught by me, the strongest person here. So there's no need to worry about wins and losses from the past, right? Laika smiled as well, though she still hesitated. You say that, but then the girl broke into a bright smile. Thank you, Jack. I feel much more at ease now. He asked curiously, good. Also, you said your sister taught you the lightning strike greatsword art, right? Laika nodded honestly. Jack suddenly exclaimed, perfect. Then, this is an excellent opportunity. He raised his hand and pointed straight into the distance. Jack slowly instructed her, just like when we trained, observe her lightning strike greatsword art very carefully. He trusted Laika's talent deeply. If you can do that, you'll become even stronger. A short while later, the girl, her face covered in wounds, said firmly, I observed it very carefully. Lady Sandy's lightning strike, great sword art. The girl spoke with resolve. I took her attacks and watched them. And now at last I can see it. Sandy froze in shock. What? Leica seized the perfect moment and immediately charged forward, her sword tip slowly cutting across Sandy's line of sight. Sandy was utterly stunned, thinking, she stopped? No, she's slow. Leica unleashed a majestic slash, forcing Sandy to quickly retreat. Sandy's face was filled with astonishment as she cried, "What?" Leica, as if gaining renewed strength, tried to show everything she had. Sandy could only grip her sword tightly and endure the girl's thunder needle technique. Watching Leica's every movement in disbelief, she muttered, "Why did her movements suddenly change like that?" Sandy could no longer stand by and immediately unleashed Thunder Flash. Leica did not hesitate. Instead, she seemed excited. "That rhythm, that's what you had and I lacked. Now I understand. I just need to put it into practice." Hearing that threw Sandy into confusion. What? Impossible. Understanding the theory doesn't mean you can imitate it right away. Outside the arena, everyone was shouting, "Incredible, Leica!" Her movements changed in an instant. Jack laughed loudly too. That's right. As expected, fighting someone who uses the same martial art lets you gain a lot. Ringiz was extremely curious. "Lord Jack, do you know why Lady Leica's movements suddenly changed?" Jack smiled calmly and explained, Leica comprehended her sister's lightning strike great sword art in the middle of the match. "That's the result of the training we did," calmly observing while directly experiencing the opponent's technique. Ringiz leaned in and replied, "I see." Jack readily continued, "In the past, Leica would get too worked up in battle. She couldn't stay calm, and all she could see was her own sword. But Leica is different now. She's calm enough to observe her opponent composedly during a fight." He understood Leica's talent very well. And now, by observing the same sword art used by her sister, she had reached a new height. Sandy, purple with anger, shouted, "Not yet. You won't beat me with such makeshift techniques." Hearing that scorn only made the girl stronger. A sudden lightning speed technique was unleashed, drowning everything in radiant light. The powerful attack knocked Sandy far back. She could not believe her eyes. "I was pushed back." Leica quickly attacked. "As for physical conditioning, I trained myself half to death with a certain someone." The girl widened her eyes and shouted, "Lady Sandy, this is the lightning strike, great sword art." The battle was extraordinarily fierce. Each technique unleashed one after another. Heavenly thunder. Sandy could no longer withstand it and fell backward, while the entire audience was engulfed in dazzling light. Leica still stood firm and shouted. Sandy's body seemed to give out completely. She staggered unsteadily and said weakly, "You've grown stronger, Leica." As soon as she finished speaking, Sandy collapsed onto the arena floor, and the announcement rang out. "The match is over." Leica stood proudly, her eyes filled with determination as the declaration came. "The winner is the East Hall." Venian was stunned. Ellen hesitated and said, "Lord Venian." A voice suddenly rang out. "That last match truly was splendid. Even though I lost my chance to shine, Leica." Leica replied calmly, "I'm just glad I managed to settle things with my own strength." The girl then continued, "If I had lost, not that I'm saying I lost, Jack's opponent would have been that Adis guy." Jack asked in surprise, "Why? Do you know him?" The girl answered honestly, "Not exactly, but he's very famous." According to Leica's account, Adis was extremely mysterious. He was the greatest genius since the Van Breed family was founded. Jack nodded indifferently, thinking, "For what I've seen, he's definitely on a completely different level from the other participants here." Leica glanced away and said, "No matter how strong you are, Jack, no one knows what will happen if you face someone like him." Adis, looking utterly confident, had been standing there for some time. An announcement rang out. The East Hall's victory has been decided. However, the matches will continue until the end. Jack and the person standing beside him were shocked. "What?" Marin was also unable to hide her astonishment. "How strange. They said it would end once 4 members of the opposing team were defeated." Jack narrowed his eyes, sensing something abnormal. He pondered briefly. What exactly is the purpose here? Adis, however, looked delighted to take part. Jack quickly stepped forward as well and muttered, "Whatever." He smiled and said, "As long as I get a fight, that's enough." Adis also walked onto the arena in high spirits. In response to Jack's confident words, he said, "That is more than enough for me." As he stepped onto the stage, Adis said excitedly, "My team from the North Hall may have lost, but to be honest, I'm only thrilled that I get to face you like this." Jack was startled. He asked, "You were that eager to fight me?" Adis answered lightly, Of course. I mean, you're the representative of the East Hall, aren't you? Adis had many questions about Jack's true nature. Even with someone like Laika on the roster, you were the one chosen as representative. That makes me wonder who you really are. You claim to carry the blood of the L-Dragon clan head, but from what I can see, you're still only 2-star. And yet, Adis tightened his grip on his sword hilt and continued. You are representing them instead of a 3-star like Laika. That should be impossible. That's why I absolutely must see your strength for myself. Hearing that, Jack grew extremely interested as well. He smiled and said, I figure as much. Looks like we're the same type. I've been looking forward to exchanging moves with you for a while too. That made Adis even more excited. Really? You feel the same? He gave a slight nod. Yes, there are plenty of experts in this arena, but you are special. I've heard you become famous recently, hailed as the genius of the century at such a young age. Adis declared, Naturally, I want to test myself against you. He quickly drew his sword and said boldly, Excellent. Now I'm even more fired up. Jack calmly thought, A sword, huh? It's been a long time since I faced a proper blade. The announcement then rang out. 7th match, begin. Adis charged forward like the wind. Here I come. Jack praised him in surprise. He closed that much distance with a single step. That footwork is terrifying. With eyes filled with fighting spirit, Adis charged in and unleashed Heavenly Sword one-strike style, executing techniques one after another. Light sword. Jack widened his eyes and thought. The presence of the sword vanished completely. The slash swept across Jack's body along with his thoughts, but Adis continued, sending sword strikes toward him. Then Adis suddenly froze, his mouth hanging open as he stammered. What? Adis stopped in place and drew his sword back. He thought to himself, he dodged it. He twisted his body at the exact moment of impact. Adis was so surprised he had to exclaim, I thought that strike was certain to hit. Jack laughed loudly. Impressive. That really was a beautiful attack. Come on, show me more. Adis replied lightly, I understand. You really are the real thing. In that case, he moved 1 foot back, preparing to launch a direct attack. Adis immediately unleashed Heavenly Sword one-strike style, then followed with Sword Wave, making Jack even more excited. The path of the blade is impossible to read. Suddenly, Jack froze and looked up with wide eyes. Another technique was unleashed, bearing an even more powerful name, Raging Current. Jack smiled and said, Nice. I didn't expect you to graze me this soon. But Adis remained utterly determined and unleashed Light Sword. Then he quickly performed Thunderbolt. Jack asked in confusion, What kind of sword path is this? It's all over the place. He stared closely and observed, thinking, as expected of a genius. Jack observed carefully and thought, It's completely unpredictable, yet he maintains both speed and power. His flow of ether moves without a single wasted motion. That razor-sharp slash read my breathing and rhythm perfectly. Adis's feet moved nimbly with every technique, and Jack silently admired Adis's talent. This would be impossible without relentless training. Jack smiled brightly and thought, This is truly wonderful. But Adis was growing unsettled, muttering, I never imagined it would be this hard to land a single hit. He had to admit it. You really are incredible. Just how did you train? Jack calmly suggested. Curious? Then train with me. But he quickly charged forward with a promise. Though we'll talk about that after this match is over. Jack's powerful punch and eyes full of fighting spirit rushed straight toward Adis. Adis could not react in time. Jack said, see. Adis still had many questions about Jack. That strength is terrifying. There's no way you're only 2-star. Jack landed and sighed, thinking I tried changing my breathing rhythm, but he adapted to the change in time. He's an even more formidable warrior than I expected. Adis spoke calmly. Even so, you finally chose to counterattack. Does that mean you're done analyzing me? Jack said coldly, For now, I've seen enough. Adis asked in return, So you've grasped my martial arts? Once again, he wanted to unleash a decisive blow against Jack. Then, Jack stood calmly observing, then exclaimed, The same move as before. He quickly retreated and dodged the attack, while Adis's eyes still shone with unwavering determination. Adis immediately attacked with the afterimage technique. Jack calmly dodged each move in succession. Adis said, Since you're so eager, he smiled mysteriously and continued, Why don't I show you a little more of what I can do? His slash wounded Jack, who said weakly, I didn't expect you to actually make me bleed. But Jack still smiled brightly in front of his opponent. The battle grew even more intense as a voice said, Now the real fun begins. Elsewhere, an arm covered in scratches and wounds slowly began to move again, accompanied by a faint groan. Sandy woke hazily and looked around in confusion. Where am I? At that moment, someone ran quickly over from afar and shouted, "Lady Sandy, are you all right?" She slowly propped herself up and answered, "Yes." Sandy remembered what had just happened. That's right. I lost, didn't I? The corners of her lips lifted into a faint smile. Sandy looked up and said softly, "I'm sorry. If only I had one." The others quickly interrupted her. "Please don't say that. If anyone should apologize, it's us for holding you back, Lady Sandy." Seeing them respectfully lower their heads, she turned back. "That isn't true. Our opponent was simply stronger. That's all." So, Sandy reminded them, "Next time, let's all do our very best so we don't lose again." Everyone shouted together, "Yes, my lady." Sandy remembered something. "By the way, has the match between the West Hall and the South Hall begun?" The girl stammered and pointed behind her. For some reason, the match is still continuing. "Look at this." Sandy looked in the direction indicated, confused. A terrifying battle was taking place at that very moment. Sandy's expression tightened. Impossible. She looked at the powerful aura of the attacks coming from that side. "I can't believe it. What the hell is that?" Sandy looked toward Jack in doubt. 5 sword energies? That means she faltered. That killing intent. Is he really planning to go all out? Meanwhile, Jack was extremely interested in the current situation. Sandy said unhappily, "In any case, he's the strongest among us." She stood silently, observing the scene before her. Jack continued launching powerful attacks toward his opponent. His eyes never lost their confidence or triumphant gleam. Adis chuckled. "Even this doesn't work. And more than that, I can't believe you've fought this long without even getting winded. Are you really human?" Jack clicked his tongue. "It's nothing special. I just put a lot of effort into building my physical foundation. Martial arts are good, but the basics are just as important. Understand?" Adis shifted his stance. "Looks like that really is true." Adis twisted his sword back and declared, "From now on, I'll train my body even more harshly." Immediately afterward, he unleashed an attack filled with inner force. Jack raised his hand to block the blades rushing toward him, thinking the sharpness of the blade, its hardness, the speed of manifestation, its range. Jack observed Adis. In terms of overall performance, the sword is still only low grade. But considering his age, the future should be very interesting. The corner of his mouth lifted into a smile. "And this match has finally confirmed it for me. The difference between 1,000 years ago and the modern era. In the martial arts of 1,000 years ago, the physical movement of an attack was the most important. The essence of battle was to use one's own technique to express all things, while ether was regarded merely as support. But in the modern era," Jack continued thinking, "people express all things by manifesting ether itself. In other words, mastery of ether is..." Jack lowered his sword, the essence of modern martial arts. Then he launched himself forward at high speed. "I never thought," Jack thought to himself, "that I would become so absorbed in combat techniques that it would take me this long to realize something after 1,000 years. His eyes shone brightly, blazing with killing intent. Could it really be this interesting? On Adis's side, he was preparing to bring down his next blow. All of his attacks had been perfectly neutralized. Adis gave a faint smile. "You really are a monster in human skin." Rengiz said anxiously, "It's been 2 hours already, and yet it still doesn't feel like it's about to end." Laika observed both of them. Neither of them is normal, but she judged it may be nearing the conclusion. Adis swung his sword down and asked, "It seems you've carefully observed all of my movements this time, haven't you?" Jack replied, "It truly has been a glorious stretch of time." Adis agreed, "I feel the same. Take a good look at your fingers. I'll pay my respects to you." "So, the lessons I drew from this battle." Jack clenched his fist and declared, "I'll give them to you right now as a new technique." Hearing that, Adis also prepared to attack. However, he laughed loudly. "So that's why I couldn't beat you." But then, Adis swung his strike down, and a huge boom rang out. "I told you, I'll still fight to the very end." At that moment, Jack sprang up high into the air. His hand clenched into a powerful fist. Dragon-slaying battle art, second form. He brought it straight down. An internal force punch transformed into Star Fist. The ground shattered, sending everyone flying upward. Amid thunderous screams and massive chunks of earth bursting into the air, that fist shot toward Adis and came crashing down. It struck the arena below with overwhelming force, shaking the entire sky. Jaemon shielded himself and wondered, what kind of terrifying power is that? Sandy looked up and asked, "Who won?" Tech spoke up, "Enough. The match is over." As the white smoke cleared, a broken sword lay scattered across the ground, while Adis lay sprawled out with both arms spread wide, muttering, "I can't even lift a finger. He's absurdly strong. I still have a long road of training ahead of me." Jack, meanwhile, stood with his arms crossed over his chest, a confident smile on his face. "The winner is the East Hall." Everyone was utterly shocked. "You're kidding. Lord Adis lost. What the hell was that match just now? Who exactly is that guy from the East Hall?" Jack turned around. Now that the arena has been leveled, the match between the West Hall and South Hall will begin. Everyone get ready. Rick and Ringiz both looked at him with admiring eyes. "That was amazing, Lord Jack. I never thought you would defeat Lord Adis." Laika snorted. "You broke it to pieces again. You really are a monster." Jack asked, "What kind of tone is that? I just won after a tough fight, you know." He sighed. "Well, whatever. Then next is you." Remembering something, he added, "Right, the other candidate for clan head." A shout rang out. "Venian will enter the field next." Jack smiled. The West Hall seems to have the highest overall quality of fighters, but the South Hall also has someone who looks very strong. He watched Venian's group slowly step out. Jack was intrigued. "I wonder how this will turn out." However, contrary to Jack's expectations, the match between the West Hall and South Hall would be completely one-sided. His gaze was icy and filled with killing intent. Side story, after my match with Adis, I might have overdone it. With this level of damage, there's no way they can repair it quickly. "It's fine. Look, see." Jack shouted in shock. "What the hell is this?" "It's repairing itself." Ringiz, however, was extremely interested. The entire arena is made of a rare stone called Ezerite. When Ezer is channeled into it, it can restore itself to its original form. Jack was bewildered. Another absurd material has appeared. He praised it. "Impressive." The boy turned to look at him. "It's unbelievable they would use such a precious red earth material for a structure this large." Tech's expression grew tense as he pondered. Strange, for it to be this one-sided. Could he really have enough power to defeat Laika? "Sona, do you still intend to continue?" Venian asked. Tech looked up and declared, "It's over. The winner is the West Hall." He continued, "The final will be the East Hall against the West Hall. We will begin in 1 hour." A few minutes later, at the arena, everyone hurriedly helped the injured team members away for treatment. Laika watched in disbelief. Even Laika. Jack also silently judged that something was wrong. He recalled Venian's battle just now. Their actual strength clearly should not have been that much greater. Yet for some reason, Jack assessed that the flow of Ezer in that girl had become terribly sluggish. Looking at the situation, something abnormal had definitely happened, and that was why it ended with such a one-sided result. He thought of Tech. Looks like the referee noticed too. "What on earth is going on?" Raymond spoke up. "I never expected Lady Laika of the Sona clan to be so helpless. As predicted, the legitimate heir is on a completely different level." Celine hesitated, "But I still think it was too one-sided." Marin stammered, "Right, but..." Celine cut in. "Maybe that's just how it was. This is the first time I've witnessed the strength of experts from the other halls, so I can't say for sure." Rick assessed, "Speaking of heirs, he's like Lord Jack and Lady Laika. Lord Venian must possess astonishing strength too." "You're right." Seeing that Ringiz had become somewhat strange, he turned and asked, "What's wrong?" The boy answered, "It's nothing. It's just, Lord Venian is certainly incredible, but so are the people of the West Hall." Ringis's words left the whole group powerless. Is everyone really that strong? "I'm sorry for saying something so weak right before the match." Marin agreed. "No, you're right. I lost my previous match too. It's frustrating, but I was completely no match for the West Hall." Rick analyzed, "If you say that, then I couldn't even beat you guys, even though your star ranks are lower." But he clenched his fist. "That doesn't mean I plan to lose." Rick declared, "Just like you guys defeated higher-ranked opponents, no, we can win too." The whole group agreed. "That's right." Jack stood nearby, looked back, and thought, "Good fighting spirit. Looks like Rick and Marin are improving." But more importantly, the current problem is here. He looked toward Laika. It seems Laika still hasn't noticed the abnormality in that girl's Ezer. If she attributes that whole match to Venian's strength, then it's understandable that she'd be restless. It's more tangled than a mess of thread. But even I still don't know the details, so I can't give careless advice. "What should I do now?" Ringiz asked. "Lady Laika, are you all right?" The girl flinched and turned around, stammering, "Thanks." Laika turned and left, waving back. "I'm just going to get some air and clear my head." Outside the grounds, the girl walked while thinking. I never imagined Venian had grown so strong that he could defeat Laika so overwhelmingly. Laika sat down by the lake. Even Adis couldn't overwhelm Laika without taking a scratch. And yet that man, Venian, did it. The last time I fought him was when I was only 5 years old. The result was that I lost. The girl sank into her thoughts. Since then, I've worked myself half to death just to wash away the shame of that defeat. I thought I'd finally caught up to him. And yet, if things follow the order, Venian's opponent will most likely be Jack. For a moment, I felt relieved that I wouldn't have to fight him. Laika's hand clenched tightly. That's right. The girl looked down at the water. I hate myself for feeling relieved like that. Laika raised her clenched fist and stared at it, her teeth gritted and her eyes full of determination. Isn't that the same as admitting defeat? I wanted to defeat him, and suddenly, a voice rang out from afar. What's this? Venian walked over, mocking her. You look awfully serious. The girl turned back and asked sternly, What do you want? I have nothing to say to you. He approached. Don't bristle like that. Once I become clan head, you might even become my wife. Laika stood up angrily and shouted, Shut up. The one who will become clan head is me. Then the girl quickly walked past him. Venian kept ridiculing her. You think you can't beat me, don't you? No wonder you couldn't beat me back then either. Hearing that, Laika stopped in her tracks. He turned and asked, You watched the match just now, didn't you? That's why. Venian stepped closer and whispered right next to the girl's ear, You're certain you can't beat me, aren't you? Laika growled, Shut up. His eyes narrowed. Why won't you admit it? You couldn't do it back then, and you can't do it now. You will never defeat me. Give up and submit to me. If you do, I may treat you kindly. The hand he had placed on her shoulder suddenly tightened. Laika spun around and knocked Venian's hand away. Shut your damn mouth. Then the girl quickly ran off, leaving him babbling behind her. Not cute at all. Venian wore a sinister smile. But with this, then, it's done. He turned back. You know what to do with the rest, don't you? Ellen understood his meaning. Leave it to me. Jack stood to one side, watching everything. She asked further, Oh, and what about that bastard? Venian answered calmly. Him? Handling him during the match won't be a problem. Ellen's face grew tense. Even if he is a bastard, he was the one who defeated Lord Adis. Shouldn't we act first? He analyzed. Ideally, if we could arrange everything before the match, that would be best. But his instincts are frighteningly sharp. It would be troublesome if he noticed. Besides, Venian recalled the attacks Jack had used earlier. From what I saw, there were times when he intentionally took hits. Even during the match, I can still set a trap. She chuckled. I see. He clenched his fist. So what if he defeated that bastard Adis? Even without arranging anything, I cannot lose to a bastard like him. Venian reached down and touched the water. A dense aura, purple-black in color, stained the clear water as he declared, The one who wins this match will be me. Inside the arena, Rick gripped his hand and stammered, So it's finally time. Even though we're second-year students, we're the weakest members of the East Hall representative team, he thought, and the West Hall is clearly filled with elites. Rick clenched his fist, his whole body trembling in confusion. Can I really win? From behind, another hand also clenched and rose high. It came straight down and smacked him on the head. Jack scolded him affectionately. Idiot, where did that spirit of yours from earlier go? Rick rubbed his head and stammered. Well, that's... Jack said sternly. Rick, what are you fighting for? To lose. He timidly replied. No, Jack pointed out. Once you step out to fight, you fight with the determination to win, no matter how great the difference in strength is. That's what matters. Rick seemed to be filled with new motivation. His fist clenched, and his eyes became determined. Win. Jack encouraged him. You've trained well. Have confidence. He became full of energy. Yes. Thank you so much, Jack. Jack continued. Then I'll give you a little tip. Relax your shoulders a bit more. Hearing that, Rick could not help being surprised. Jack explained. The secret technique, great strength fist, gathers all your power into one point and releases it. If you tense up too much, the force that should be concentrated will scatter. Jack tapped his shoulder. Come on, relax. Relax. Rick listened. Yes. Then he said firmly and loudly, I feel like I can win now. Thank you so much. Jack nodded. Good. Now go win. Laika turned to look at him. But it's strange. You've never learned great strength fist, have you? And yet you know so much about it. Sometimes you also have an abnormal understanding of other martial arts. The girl wondered, why is that? Doesn't it seem strange? Jack chuckled. What a silly question. Of course it's... His eyes grew tense as he looked aside. At that moment, Laika also stared at him. But instead of giving a serious answer, Jack merely pointed at himself. Because it's me, the girl was speechless. I was stupid for asking seriously. Over here, Rick was extremely pumped up. This guy, he looked straight at his opponent and assessed. He's the strong one we saw in the first match. The corner of Rick's mouth curled up. But this time I won't lose. The opponent also smirked mockingly. A weakling who lost to someone from the North Hall dares to act arrogant. Rick shouted boldly, "Shut up, I'm not the same as I was back then." The man sneered, "Not the same as before." Tech waved his hand and shouted, "East Hall versus West Hall. First match begin." A knife was drawn and shot forward along with a warning, "Don't be stupid." Seeing that, Rick could not help being shocked, his eyes widening. The man was rushing in to attack. How could you change in just a few hours? Va swarm sword art, mantis slash. He charged straight toward Rick like an arrow. Immediately afterward, Rick quickly blocked the attack. The man slid back and laughed loudly. "So you can use aura to block like a professional. But can you block this?" Rick was then struck by the 10,000 swarms' heart-devouring attack. The man gloated, "What's wrong? Didn't you say you had changed?" Rick gritted his teeth and endured the pain, thinking he's strong. But that doesn't mean I'll be overwhelmed one-sidedly. Rick charged forward and threw a punch, but the man dodged it and mocked him. How foolish. How could an attack like that ever touch me? After that, he rushed in again and swung his blade toward Rick. Rick had to stop and calm himself. At this rate, I can't catch up to him. What should I do? Come on, relax. Great strength fist gathers all your power into one place. His foot pivoted backward. Rick's eyes were now extremely determined. All or nothing. The man swung his knife and roared, "Even if you're just trash." He charged toward Rick, who was only standing there with his hand raised to resist. The man shouted, "You sure are stubborn." Rick smiled with excitement. "Got you." The man was horrified. "What? This guy?" Rick had grabbed the blade and stopped it. He raised the knife to block. "Take this." He used his power and swung his fist. Great strength fist. It struck the man directly in the face, sending his whole body tumbling backward. That internal force punch changed everything. He was blasted violently away. Tech shouted, "Match over." Everyone stared closely at the situation. Jack and Laika both smiled proudly. Tech stepped forward. "The winner is the faint smoke." Gradually dispersed, revealing the man sitting collapsed amid the dirt and rocks, his entire body in a miserable state. Along with Tech's shout, "East Hall." Rick now looked as if he could not believe his eyes. But afterward, his expression changed into one of strength and confidence. Rick raised his hand high and shouted, "Yes." The man, meanwhile, opened his eyes hazily. He slowly pushed himself up with his hands and stammered pitifully, "No way. I lost." Suddenly, Venian called out, "Hey." The man walked over and knelt at his feet. "I'm terribly sorry." But before he finished speaking, Venian mercilessly swung his sword and sent him flying. Everyone grew tense. He turned his head back, his eyes blazing with killing intent, and asked, "You understand, don't you?" "Crush him." The whole group shouted, "Yes." Over here, Rick raised his hand and cheered. "Marin, do your best. You can do it." Marin also stepped out confidently, clenching both hands. "Yeah." Tech spoke up. "Second match, begin." Just like that, both of them rushed in and attacked. The girl unleashed her attack. Scarlet Flame, sword art. Her sword swung out. Spark Flame, slash. The person on Venian's side also lowered his body and prepared to strike. The two rushed quickly toward each other. However, he swung his sword upward in a reverse slash. Marin was then counterattacked. His eyes narrowed. Great chaos, spear art. He struck the girl directly. Frenzied piercing strike. Marin dropped to one knee on the ground, clutching her stomach in pain. Before the girl could recover, he immediately launched another attack. Seeing this from outside, Rengiz was bewildered. Why is it going this far? Blood suddenly sprayed out. Celine shrank back in fear. "I can't take this anymore." Laika trembled with rage. "That bastard." Rick shouted furiously, "You bastard." Raymond stopped him. "No, there hasn't been an order to end it yet. If I jump in now, we'll lose for breaking the rules." Tech spoke up. "End." He declared, "The winner is the West Hall." By then, Marin had been beaten until she lay flat on the ground. Rick approached and lifted the girl up, calling loudly, "Marin, are you all right?" Above them, Jack stood with his arms crossed over his chest, silently observing. Cheers rang out. "Hang in there, Marin." "Marin!"